The Banshee's Blueprint for Bedlam. A cozy paranormal romantic comedy of chaos, contracts, and catastrophic crushes. Grimvale's Magical Mishaps, Book 2, by Wynn Valentine. Copyright 2025 by Wynn Valentine. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced in any form or by any electronic or mechanical means, including information storage and retrieval systems, without written permission from the author, except for the use of brief quotations in a book review. This novel is entirely a work of fiction. The names, characters, and incidents portrayed in it are the work of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events or localities is entirely coincidental. Wynn Valentine asserts the moral right to be identified as the author of this work. Designations used by companies to distinguish their products are often claimed as trademarks. All brand names and product names used in this book and on its cover are trade names, service marks, trademarks, and registered trademarks of their respective owners. The publishers and the book are not associated with any product or vendor mentioned in this book. None of the companies referenced within the book have endorsed the book. Book cover by Dana Sacco. Formatting with vellum. Chapter 1. Moira. 7:43 a.m. 17 folders. 3 backup calculators. 0 signs of impending catastrophe. I adjust my glasses and smooth my charcoal gray suit jacket, breathing in the familiar scent of fresh coffee and organized efficiency. My desk gleams with professional competence, every pen aligned, every folder labeled in my most careful handwriting, every backup system in place for the backup systems. This is control. This is order. This is how Moira O'Malley, CPA, certified paranormal accountant, manages her life and her clients without a single embarrassing supernatural incident. The quarterly tax reports won't prepare themselves. I pull the first folder toward me, Mrs. Weatherby, proprietor of Crystal Visions and Mystical Solutions, and flip it open with confidence. Numbers make sense. Numbers have rules. Numbers don't care if your voice occasionally vibrates at frequencies that shatter glassware when you're stressed, which I'm not. Stressed, that is. I'm perfectly calm. I'm always calm. The first 3 deductions pass inspection without incident. Business license renewal, check. Professional organization dues, reasonable. Storefront maintenance, properly documented. Then I reach page 4. Emotional support crystals, $3,847. I blink. Read it again. The number doesn't change. $3,847 for crystals. Emotional support crystals. My throat tightens in that familiar, terrible way. Deep breaths, Moira. Protocol 1. Deep breathing exercises. In through the nose for 4 counts, hold for 4, out through the mouth for 4. This is a normal deduction query. This requires a normal professional conversation. This does not require a low hum vibrates from somewhere in my chest. Number. Absolutely not. I breathe deeper. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, dash dash. The hum escapes anyway, musical and completely involuntary. My glasses vibrate against my nose. Not now, I whisper to my traitorous vocal cords. We're being professional. I grab Protocol 2, progressive muscle relaxation, from my desk drawer and force myself through the exercises. Tense shoulders. Release. Tense jaw. Release. Tense everything because your body is a supernatural disaster waiting to humiliate you in front of the entire business district. Release. The next folder contains unicorn grooming supplies, totaling $2,300. The hum rises half an octave. Protocol 3. Positive visualization. I close my eyes and picture a calm, organized space where tax codes make sense and clients don't claim thousands of dollars for mythical creature maintenance. A place where my voice stays firmly lodged in my throat where it belongs. I open my eyes. Flip to the next client file. Werewolf Safe Furniture Insurance. $4,200. Dragonfire Liability Coverage. $12,500. The hum becomes an actual note, clear and ringing. My coffee mug rattles against its saucer. Protocols 4 through 18 blur together in rapid succession. Meditation apps, the phone screen cracks. Stress ball squeezing. The ball explodes in my hand, sending foam everywhere. Counting backward from 100 in 3 languages: English, Irish, and desperately Latin. I only make it to 73 in English before my voice takes on that crystalline quality that means I'm approximately 2 minutes from a full stress-wailing episode. The rational part of my brain, the part that calculated compound interest in my head for fun as a teenager, the part that organized my closet by color and season, the part that moved to Grimvale specifically to avoid these exact situations. That part knows I should stop, should close the folders, should step away from the desk and do literally anything else. But I can't stop. There are 17 folders. There are deadlines. There are clients depending on my professional services, and I am not the kind of person who abandons her responsibilities just because her supernatural nature is inconvenient. I reach for Protocol 19. Emergency chocolate consumption. The dark chocolate truffle melts on my tongue with bittersweet richness. For exactly 3 seconds, I think it might actually work this time. Then I flip to the next deduction claim and discover that someone, I don't even check whose file it is, has listed existential dread management consulting as a business expense. The wail tears out of me like song, like keening, like every frustrated feeling I've suppressed since arriving at my office this morning, given supernatural voice. My windows vibrate. Actually vibrate, the glass flexing in its frames with each musical note. My 17 bobby pins, I count them every morning, exactly 17, to keep my auburn hair in its perfect professional bun, begin loosening one by one, pinging onto my desk like tiny metal raindrops. The filing cabinets join in, rattling in harmonic resonance with my distress. Documents flutter, pens roll. My backup calculators march toward the edge of the desk in synchronized percussion, and I can't stop. I try, pressing my hands over my mouth, which only muffles the sound slightly. My glasses slide down my nose. Hair tumbles from its destroyed bun. The wail continues, transformed by my desperate attempts at silence into something even more musical, more resonant, more absolutely mortifying. Footsteps in the hallway outside. Rapid footsteps. Multiple sets. Structural integrity compromised. Never heard anything like evacuate the building. Oh God. Oh no. This is exactly what happened in Dublin and Cork and the 3 jobs before I finally gave up and moved across an ocean to start fresh somewhere that promised to be more understanding of supernatural difficulties. I grabbed tissues from my desk drawer, the emergency drawer, which also contains breath mints, a sewing kit, and a printed copy of my stress protocols because I don't trust everything to digital storage, and stuff them into my mouth. The wailing continues, only slightly dampened. Now I sound like a banshee with a head cold. My mortification increases the volume. Someone knocks on my office door. Professional, measured knocks that somehow convey both authority and patience. The door opens before I can even attempt to compose myself. Mayor Thaddeus Grimm stands in my doorway, his lean frame filling the space with calm presence despite the chaos of my still vibrating office. His prematurely gray hair is slightly disheveled, probably from the building-wide panic I've caused. Wire-rimmed glasses frame kind brown eyes that take in the scene. Scattered documents, vibrating furniture, me with tissues stuffed in my mouth like the world's most pathetic supernatural disaster, with remarkable composure. He's carrying an official form, a violation form specifically, printed on Grimvale municipal letterhead. I want to sink through the floor. My hands fly up in frantic gestures. Apology, embarrassment, desperate explanation. The tissues fall from my mouth. The wailing finally, mercifully stops, though my filing cabinets continue their sympathetic rattling. Miss O'Malley. His voice is steady, diplomatic, the voice of someone who has mediated supernatural crises before, and will doubtless mediate many more. I'm afraid I need to cite you for violation of Grimvale Municipal Code Section 7.3, subsection B. Supernatural disturbances affecting structural integrity of commercial buildings. My face burns. Crimson doesn't begin to cover it. I'm fairly certain I've achieved some new shade of mortification not yet named by science. He reaches into his worn leather messenger bag, the same one I've seen him carry to every town council meeting, every community event, every official mayoral appearance, and extracts a municipal pen with practiced efficiency. I understand these incidents can be involuntary, he continues, his tone gentle despite the official nature of the citation. However, for insurance purposes, I do need to complete the paperwork. I'm so sorry, I manage, my voice still carrying traces of supernatural resonance that make my words ring like bells. The tax deductions there was unicorn grooming and dragon insurance. I didn't mean to. He's already scanning the form, pen poised. His eyes land on the ornate brass inkwell that sits on the corner of my desk. An antique I inherited from my grandmother, one of the few family items I brought to Grimvale. I keep it filled with archival quality ink for signing important documents, because even my writing instruments have backup systems. Thaddeus dips the pen in the inkwell, signs the violation form with his usual efficient signature. Pink light explodes from the inkwell, not metaphorically. Actual pink, magical light that erupts like a geyser, swirling around both of us in ribbons that smell like roses and old parchment, and something indefinably ancient. The violation form in his hands transforms. I watch, frozen in horror, as his neat, official handwriting reshapes itself into elaborate, flowing script that definitely doesn't say noise complaint citation. Magically bound in eternal romantic partnership, effective immediately. Thaddeus reads aloud, his calm voice cracking slightly on eternal. Witnessed by the Amoret and ratified under Grimvale's supernatural law, this bond unites. My tax reports burst into golden light. Every single folder. All 17 of them. The color-coded organization I spent 3 hours perfecting last night. Crimson for urgent, gold for quarterly, forest green for annual, sky blue for amended returns. All of it dissolving into glowing ink that rearranges itself across the pages. The tax deduction for Mrs. Weatherby's emotional support crystals transforms into a sonnet about emerald eyes and steadfast hearts. The werewolf furniture insurance becomes a passionate declaration of devotion to she who weathers storms with grace. The Dragonfire liability coverage. I can't even look at what it's becoming, but I catch the words, burning passion, and eternal flame before I have to close my eyes. I did not write any of this. My filing cabinets spring open with synchronized precision. Documents levitate, swirling through the air in a paper storm that should be chaotic, but somehow feels perfectly orchestrated. They begin filing themselves with supernatural efficiency, but not alphabetically, not by date, not by any organizational system I've ever used. Lonely Hearts Bakery slots itself next to Soulmate Flower Shop. Eternal Devotion Jewelry settles beside Forever Together Photography. Bitter divorce attorney flies to the back corner like it's been banished. No, I whisper, watching my perfectly organized professional filing system reorganize itself by romantic compatibility. No, no, no. Thaddeus still holds the transformed violation form. He stares at it with the expression of a man watching his carefully ordered world crumble into magical chaos. His diplomatic composure finally cracks. This isn't. He adjusts his glasses. I was just... He looks at me helplessly. Municipal code violation. I count to 10 in English. Then Irish. Then Latin for good measure, because Latin has rules and structure, and makes sense, unlike whatever magical catastrophe just upended both our lives. My stress protocols manual sits on the corner of my desk, its tabs color-coded by emergency level. I grab it, but the motion is automatic. My brain is already working through the problem with the same methodical precision I use for impossible tax deductions. This is a contract. Magical, yes. Unwanted, definitely. But still a contract, which means there are terms, precedents, legal frameworks. I can research this. I can organize it. I can create a systematic approach to untangling this romantic catastrophe before it destroys everything I've built in Grimvale. I reach for my laptop with hands that only shake slightly. Force my voice into something approximating professional calm. Right. The word comes out steadier than I feel. We need to review the legal precedents for magical document transformation. There must be case law, supernatural contract disputes, something. Thaddeus blinks at me. You want to research our way out of this? Do you have a better plan? He looks down at the glowing declaration of eternal devotion in his hands. At my office, where documents continue their romantic reorganization and the filing cabinets hum with satisfied efficiency. At me, with my destroyed bun and crimson face, and laptop already open to Grimvale's supernatural legal database. No, he admits. I really don't. I pull up a chair for him, professional courtesy, nothing more, and begin typing search terms with determined focus. We are going to solve this systematically, professionally, without any additional supernatural disasters. The laptop screen fills with search results, each one more concerning than the last. This is fine. Everything is fine. I just need to organize the problem properly. My filing cabinets emit what sounds distinctly like a romantic sigh.
Chapter 2. Thaddeus. My office door clicks shut with the precise, measured sound of a man maintaining composure through sheer force of will. I lean against it for exactly 3 seconds. Enough time to catalogue the supernatural crisis management protocols I'll need, prioritize my municipal emergency response procedures, and acknowledge that this is absolutely the strangest Monday of my 5-year mayoral tenure, which is saying something considering last month's incident with the werewolf wedding reception that accidentally coincided with the full moon. I cross to my desk with deliberate steps, each footfall measured and calm, professional. A mayor who has weathered municipal budgets, zoning disputes, and the occasional Dragonfire insurance claim is certainly capable of managing one small, supernatural romantic entanglement. The emergency binder sits in its designated spot, second shelf, right side, spine perfectly aligned with the edge. I reach for it with the relief of a man grasping familiar structure in the midst of chaos. The cover reads, in cheerful pink lettering that definitely wasn't there this morning, "So You're Magically Bound, a Guide to Supernatural Romance." I open it. The carefully organized tabs marking flood protocols, magical containment procedures, and supernatural insurance documentation have transformed into pastel-colored sections titled First Date Ideas for the Magically Committed, Navigating Emotional Intimacy Under Supernatural Contract Law, and, I close my eyes briefly, Maintaining Romance While Filing Joint Municipal Tax Returns. The flood protocol section, which I spent 2 weeks perfecting after the water nymph incident, now offers suggestions for romantic riverside picnics. My desk lamp flickers. I set the binder down with careful precision, adjust my glasses, and reach for my standard incident report forms. Yellow carbon copy, municipal header, neat boxes for date, time, location, and nature of emergency. Structure, order. The comfortable bureaucracy that has anchored my professional life since I took office. I uncap my reliable fountain pen, the one Grimvale gave me as an inauguration gift, engraved with the town seal and "In Service of Community." The moment pen touches paper, my neat documentation begins to transform. On this day, the 14th of October, I write, an incident occurred at 47 Thornwood Lane. The words shimmer, shift, reshape themselves into flowing script that definitely doesn't match my handwriting. On this blessed day, when autumn's gentle gold illuminates the morning, my heart discovered beauty in emerald eyes behind tortoiseshell frames, intelligence that speaks in mathematical precision, grace that transforms chaos into ordered columns of numbers. Asterisk, quote. No, I say it aloud, to the empty office. Absolutely not. I try again. Fresh form, clinical language, incident classification, magical interference with municipal documents, parties affected, Mayor Thaddeus Grimm, resident Moira O'Malley, nature of interference. The ink reshapes itself mid-sentence. Nature of interference. The blessed intervention of fate, binding two souls whose complementary natures, steadfast guardian and brilliant keeper of order, deserve the happiness that comes from partnership divine. I stare at the transformed paperwork with the resigned expression of a man who has managed 5 years of supernatural municipal crises and thought he'd seen everything. The incident report continues writing itself, producing increasingly flowery sonnets praising voices that sing of mathematical precision and the elegant curve of numbers arranged in proper columns. Romantic magical interference, I mutter, reaching for my insurance policy binder. Need to add that to the city's coverage, right between dragonfire liability and werewolf property damage. My desk lamp begins humming. It's not random noise. It's a melody. Familiar. Wedding march in B-flat major, if I'm not mistaken, which I'm probably not because my mother insisted I learn music theory alongside municipal management. Traitor, I tell the lamp. It hums more enthusiastically. A knock at my door interrupts what was about to become a very undignified conversation with my office furniture. I straighten my tie, smooth my expression into something approximating mayoral composure, and call out with only slightly strained professionalism. Come in. Eric Thornwick fills my doorway with the casual ease of someone who spent 4.5 centuries perfecting the art of commanding space. His stone-grey skin catches the morning light filtering through my window, and his silver eyes take in the chaos of my office, singing documents, humming lamp, transformed emergency binder, with the knowing look of someone who has recently survived his own magical romantic entanglement. Heard you had an interesting morning, he says, settling into my visitor's chair with surprising grace for someone who could probably bench press City Hall. The bakery windows were glowing pink when I passed, Pella's making what she calls new love celebration cupcakes. They're floating. I gesture helplessly at my desk. The emergency protocols have become dating advice. My incident reports write love poetry, and my lamp, as if on cue, it hums another measure of the wedding march. My lamp has developed musical aspirations. Eric's expression shows something I've rarely seen on his typically stoic features. Sympathy. Real, genuine understanding that comes from personal experience rather than polite concern. The amourette got you too? Not a question. He picks up one of my transformed forms, scanning the romantic sonnets with the detached interest of someone reviewing municipal zoning codes. Could be worse. When Pella and I got bound, her emotional magic turned the entire bakery into a sentient matchmaking service. Every customer left with free relationship counseling, along with their morning pastries. How did you... I pause, trying to find diplomatic phrasing. How did you manage? The municipal complications alone must have been considerable. Fought it. He sets the form down, meeting my eyes with ancient directness. For weeks, told myself the magic was forcing something that couldn't be real, that I didn't deserve happiness after... He stops, continues with characteristic bluntness. After losing Elena, convinced myself that accepting the bond meant betraying my past. The wedding march hums softer. Even my traitorous lamp seems to recognize the weight of grief. What changed? I ask, though I'm not entirely sure I want to know the answer. Or rather, I'm not sure I'm ready to apply whatever wisdom he's about to share to my own situation. Realized I was fighting the wrong battle. Eric's leans back, the chair creaking slightly under his stone weight. The magic didn't create my feelings for Pella. It just forced me to stop hiding from them behind duty and old pain. The bond was inconvenient, yes. Chaotic? Absolutely. But the connection underneath? His expression gentles in a way I've only seen when he looks at Pella. That was real. The magic just made me acknowledge it faster than my stubborn gargoyle pride would have allowed. I look at my transformed documents. At the emergency binder offering romantic advice. At the lamp that's now humming something that sounds suspiciously like a love ballad from the 1940s. Moira O'Malley, I say carefully, filed 18 separate noise complaints against herself last year. She has a stress management protocol for her stress management protocols. Her office filing system uses a color coding scheme that requires a 12-page reference guide. Sounds terrible, Eric says with absolutely no conviction. She alphabetizes her tea collection by Latin name, with subsections for caffeinated versus herbal preparations. Horrifying. Ordered leave. Last month, she submitted a 47-page proposal for reforming Grimvale's supernatural tax code to account for inflation in magical ingredients. I hear my own voice warming despite my best efforts. It included footnotes and appendices and a comprehensive index that cross-referenced every major legal precedent from the past century. Eric's mouth twitches with what might be amusement. And you read all 47 pages? Final asked. I read all 63 pages. The proposal was 47. The supporting documentation added another 16 inches. I adjust my glasses, a nervous habit I thought I'd conquered years ago. It was brilliant. Comprehensive. She'd considered variables I hadn't even thought to question. The way she structures arguments, the precision of her research. I stop. Eric's is definitely smiling now, though he's trying to hide it behind his usual stoic expression. What I mean, I continue with as much dignity as I can muster, is that she represents everything I've always admired in a professional colleague. Competence, intellectual precision, the kind of quiet strength that manages supernatural tax law without losing her sanity. Mostly. Colleague. Eric's somehow makes the word sound both skeptical and knowing. That's what you admire about her. My filing cabinet, the one containing 5 years of meticulously organized municipal records, emits what sounds distinctly like a romantic sigh. The filing cabinet needs to stay out of this, I tell it firmly. It sighs again, more enthusiastically. I abandon my desk in favor of the small bookshelf where I keep Grimvale's legal references. Supernatural Contract Law, 3rd edition. Municipal Magic Governance. The Complete Guide to Paranormal Administrative Proceedings. Surely one of them will contain useful information about accidental magical bonding and the proper legal procedures for dissolution. I pull down the contract law volume, flipping to the chapter on supernatural agreements. The moment I open it, the pages begin humming. Not the wedding march this time, something softer. A romantic ballad in 3/4 time that definitely wasn't part of the original legal text. The statute on binding magical contracts transforms before my eyes. Chapter 47. Fated mate bonds and supernatural marriage law becomes Communication is key. Legal precedents for magical matrimony. Section 3, Dissolution Procedures, rewrites itself as Why fighting fate only makes the journey longer. A historical perspective. I try the municipal governance text. Same result. The moment I touch it, Romantic advice columns bloom across pages that should contain dry zoning regulations. My computer offers no better refuge. I boot it up, navigate to the municipal legal database, and search for accidental magical bonding precedents. The screen fills with pop-up windows. Each one displays a historical case. The 1847 love letter mix-up. When magical ink meets true love, the Thornsbury incident. Fated mates through bureaucratic error, a success story. Every single pop-up is accompanied by soft orchestral music. Heart-shaped graphics dance across my screen like supernatural confetti. None of this was part of the original software installation. The amarette's very thorough, Eriks observes, watching my increasingly desperate research attempts with ancient patience. Pella told me it's been expanding its influence since our wedding. Something about spreading joy through romantic chaos and helping lonely hearts find their matches. I'm not lonely, I say, automatically. Then pause, because honesty has always been one of my core principles, even when it's uncomfortable. I'm busy. There's a difference. Is there? Eriks's bluntness cuts through my careful rationalization. I spent 400 years telling myself I was content with solitude, that duty and protection were enough, that wanting more meant weakness. He gestures at my singing office. The amourette didn't force me to love Pella. It just made it impossible to keep pretending I didn't want exactly what I thought I couldn't have. My laptop plays another romantic ballad. A new pop-up appears. The benefits of magical partnership. Administrative efficiency through romantic collaboration. I close my eyes, open them. The pop-up remains, now featuring an animated graphic of two figures, one holding what looks suspiciously like a stress management binder, the other carrying municipal forms, joining hands while hearts rain down around them. Let me ask you something, Eriks says, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. Is being bound to a competent, beautiful woman who shares your appreciation for proper filing systems actually a problem? Or are you just afraid that accepting help might mean admitting you don't have to carry everything alone? The question hits harder than I expect. I think about my 5 years as mayor, 5 years of managing every crisis personally, of maintaining perfect composure while Grimvale's supernatural population created chaos, of telling myself that professional dedication meant sacrificing personal connection. I think about Moira in her office, surrounded by transformed tax documents, counting bobby pins with determined precision while her world fell apart. The way she immediately started researching solutions instead of panicking, her instinct to organize the problem, systematize the crisis, approach disaster with analytical calm. The way she looked at me with those sharp green eyes and suggested we solve this together. It's not the magical contract that scares me, I admit quietly. The words feel strange after years of carefully maintained mayoral composure. It's the possibility that working with her might actually be exactly what both my professional life and my extremely orderly personal existence have been missing. My filing cabinet chimes. It's a warm, approving sound that somehow manages to convey satisfaction despite being an inanimate object. And there's the truth, Eriks says. Took me 3 weeks to get there. You managed it in, he glances at my desk clock, approximately 2 hours. Impressive for a human. What do I do now? The question comes out more vulnerable than I intend. I can't just accept a magical romantic bond based on efficient filing systems and mutual appreciation for proper documentation. Why not? Eriks's expression holds ancient amusement. I fell in love with a woman whose emotional magic made her cupcakes cry. You're bound to someone who stress wails during tax season and color codes her tea. Grimvale doesn't do simple romance. He stands, moving toward my door with the casual power of stone come to life. My advice? Stop fighting the magic and start working with it. The amorette's interference is inconvenient, yes. But the connection it's highlighting? He pauses at the threshold. That's worth exploring, especially with someone who understands the value of proper legal research. After he leaves, I sit at my desk, surrounded by singing documents and humming office supplies. My emergency binder offers dating advice. My computer plays romantic ballads. My carefully controlled professional environment has transformed into a musical celebration of magical romantic chaos. I think about Moira's 47-page tax proposal. The way she structures legal arguments with the precision of someone who finds beauty in organized complexity. her determination to solve problems through research and systematic analysis. The growing panic I felt in her office wasn't about the magical contract. It was about recognizing someone whose competence and intelligence and quietly fierce strength might actually complement my own carefully ordered life. Someone who might understand that loving stability doesn't mean fearing connection. I pull up a fresh document on my computer, title it Supernatural Contract Law, Research Strategy and Documentation Plan. The text doesn't transform into poetry. Instead, my cursor blinks steadily, waiting for practical planning. I begin typing. Categories for research. Timeline for investigation. Contact list of legal experts who might offer precedence. A systematic approach to understanding our magical predicament. Working with Moira isn't just the most logical solution to our shared crisis. It's an opportunity to discover whether the brilliant woman behind the stress wailing and excessive organization might be exactly what my orderly life has been missing. Someone who brings her own structure to complement mine, who understands the beauty of well-organized chaos. My filing cabinet chimes approvingly. Don't get ahead of yourself, I tell it. We're approaching this professionally. With proper research and documentation. It chimes again, more enthusiastically. I save my document, straighten my tie, and begin the careful work of organizing a crisis that might actually be the beginning of something extraordinary if I'm brave enough to stop hiding behind municipal duty and acknowledge what Eric's already recognized. Sometimes the best partnerships are the ones you never planned for, the ones that arrive through magical chaos and transform your carefully ordered world into something infinitely more interesting. My desk lamp hums its approval, and for the first time all morning, I don't tell it to stop.
Chapter 3. Moira. I arrive at City Hall at precisely 9:15 a.m., my emergency crisis management portfolio tucked under one arm, 17 backup pens distributed strategically across my blazer pockets, and the thermos of stress reduction tea clutched in my white-knuckled grip. I've counted my bobby pins 3 times already this morning, 17, as always. Rehearsed my professional greeting approximately 9 times in the car, and organized my thoughts into numbered categories that should prevent any further supernatural embarrassment. The building's intercom system has other plans. The moment I step through the front doors, soft jazz begins playing through every speaker. Not the usual municipal announcements about parking regulations or community meeting schedules. Actual jazz. Smooth. Romantic. The kind that plays in upscale restaurants when couples lean close over candlelit tables. Oh no. The words escape as a whisper. No. 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 My stress levels spike immediately. This is exactly what I was afraid of. My proximity affecting municipal operations. The Emirates' magic spreading beyond my office into Thaddeus's professional domain. I adjust my tortoiseshell glasses with shaking fingers and begin counting bobby pins under my breath. 1, 2, 3. The reception desk comes into view, and I watch in mounting horror as the filing system spontaneously reorganizes itself. Manila folders slide across the desk with purpose, rearranging themselves from whatever sensible alphabetical or numerical system the receptionist uses into 4 precise letters. L-O-V-E. The receptionist, a pleasant woman named Martha who's worked here for 15 years and has never shown any magical ability whatsoever, stares at her suddenly romantic office supplies with bewildered fascination. Her stapler has scooted itself next to her tape dispenser, in what can only be described as a cuddling position. Her pens have paired off and arranged themselves in tidy couples across her desk pad. Good morning, Martha, I manage, my voice tight with forced professional calm. I have a 9:30 appointment with Mayor Grimm regarding municipal contract complications. She looks up from her romantically reorganized desk, blinking. Right. He's expecting you. Though I have to say, Ms. O'Malley, I've worked here since before Mayor Grimm took office, and I've never seen the filing system do that before. She gestures to the LOVE folders, which are now emitting a faint golden shimmer. Yes, well, supernatural accounting complications. Very technical. I'm sure it will resolve itself once we complete the proper legal research. I'm babbling. I know I'm babbling. My stress reduction tea sloshes in its thermos as my hands tremble. My mobile phone rings, startling me so badly I nearly drop my portfolio. I fumble it from my pocket, recognizing Finley's number with relief. Excuse me 1 moment. I step to the side of the reception area, pressing the phone to my ear. Finley, I'm at City Hall for the meeting. I'm covering all client meetings today. Their voice is brisk, practical, but underlaid with protective concern. Already rescheduled the quarterly reviews and moved the supernatural business tax consultations to next week. Told everyone you're handling an emergency contract situation. You didn't have to do that. Though gratitude floods through me. I can manage, Moira. Finley's tone softens. You stress wailed so loudly yesterday that filing cabinets 3 blocks away started reorganizing themselves by romantic compatibility. This clearly falls under our firm's supernatural emergency protocols, which... They pause, and I can hear them making notes. We definitely need to update after this incident. Add a section about magically binding contracts interfering with professional operations. Despite my anxiety, a small smile tugs at my lips. Leave it to Finley to find the practical business application in supernatural chaos. Thank you. I'll update you after the meeting with Thaddeus. The mayor, you mean? Their voice holds knowing amusement. Who you're now magically bound to via official municipal documentation. Very professional. Finley. I'm just saying, if you're going to accidentally acquire a fated mate, at least you chose someone with excellent organizational skills and access to comprehensive legal resources. They pause. Also, he's quite attractive. In that distinguished, responsible mayor sort of way, heat creeps up my neck. This is a professional crisis requiring systematic research, not whatever you're implying. Of course. Very professional. That's why the building is playing jazz, and the filing system is spelling out romantic messages. Their tone is gentle now, serious beneath the teasing. Moira, it's okay to be scared. And it's okay to accept help from someone who might actually understand how overwhelming this feels. My throat tightens. I have to go. The appointment is in 10 minutes. Take care of yourself. And maybe let someone else take care of you too. Novel concept, I know. They hang up before I can protest. I pocket my phone, taking a steadying breath. My stress levels are climbing again. I can feel the familiar pressure building in my chest, the way my supernatural nature responds to anxiety with sound. A low humming begins to emerge from my throat, involuntary and horrifying. The elevator buttons light up in heart-shaped patterns. 4, 5, 6. I count bobby pins frantically, adjusting my glasses with my free hand. The humming subsides slightly, but the elevator continues displaying hearts instead of floor numbers. Martha stares at the elevator panel with the same bewildered fascination she'd shown her reorganized desk. That's new. Technical difficulties. My voice comes out strained. Municipal interference. Very complicated. I press what I hope is the button for the second floor. It's glowing pink now, shaped like a Valentine, and step into the elevator with relief when the doors actually open. The soft jazz follows me inside, playing through a speaker I'm certain didn't exist in this elevator yesterday. The ride up takes approximately 30 seconds. I count 17 bobby pins, adjust my glasses 4 times, and recite the periodic table in my head to maintain composure. By the time the doors open on the second floor, I've almost convinced myself I can handle this with professional dignity. Thaddeus's office door stands open. I approach with careful steps, portfolio clutched like a shield. Thermos of stress reduction tea held in a death grip. The moment I cross the threshold, every piece of electronic equipment begins playing harmonized, romantic ballads. His computer joins the chorus first, the speakers emitting what sounds suspiciously like a love song from a popular romantic comedy. His desk phone chimes in with bass notes. The printer in the corner provides percussion through rhythmic paper feed sounds. Even his calculator, a sensible scientific model that should only produce numerical displays, begins beeping a melody. I watch in horror as Thaddeus's carefully organized desk supplies rearrange themselves. Staplers nestle next to tape dispensers with affectionate proximity. Pens group themselves in romantic pairs, crossing at precise angles that somehow suggest intimacy. His stress ball rolls across the desk to cuddle against his coffee mug. Thaddeus looks up from where he's been reviewing documents at his desk. He's wearing a button-down shirt in soft blue, tie perfectly knotted, reading glasses perched on his nose. For a moment, he just blinks at me while his office transforms into a musical romantic comedy around us. Then he stands with unhurried grace, offering professional calm despite the magical chaos. Miss O'Malley, right on time. Please, have a seat. He gestures to one of the chairs across from his desk, then moves to a small coffee station in the corner. Would you like some coffee? I find it helps during particularly complicated municipal discussions. Yes, thank you. I sink into the offered chair, setting my portfolio on my lap with trembling hands. Thaddeus pours coffee into a mug, then pauses. He stares at the ceramic for a moment before turning to face me, holding it up with an expression of dry resignation. The mug now reads, "World's Best Mayor and Accidental Romantic Lead," in swirling golden letters. This said "World's Best Mayor" yesterday, he says calmly. Just the mayor part. No romantic qualifications whatsoever. Despite my anxiety, a startled laugh escapes. The Amorette has a sense of humor, apparently. He hands me the mug, our fingers brushing briefly in the transfer. The office supplies on his desk rearrange themselves into more elaborate romantic formations. Paper clips forming heart shapes, sticky notes organizing into what might be tiny love letters. Thaddeus retrieves his own coffee in a mug that now proclaims second place in love and municipal management, and settles into his desk chair with practiced composure. I've prepared preliminary research into supernatural contract law. Cross-referenced historical precedent from Grimvale's archives, consulted with 3 magical legal experts, and compiled. My stress spikes at the sheer competence radiating from him. The careful organization, the systematic approach. The fact that he's treating this crisis with the same professional dedication I would apply to a complicated tax situation. A low wail begins building in my throat. Oh no. I press my hand to my mouth, eyes wide with panic. Oh no, not here. Not in City Hall, but it's too late. The involuntary musical wail emerges with the force of supernatural opera, transforming the city council chamber next door into an impromptu concert hall. I can feel the magic spreading through the walls, ethereal lighting blooming in the adjacent room, acoustics shifting to make my Banshee voice sound like a heavenly choir. The aria pours from me in waves of sound I can't control. My stress, my embarrassment, my overwhelming awareness of Thaddeus's calm competence and kind brown eyes. All of it manifests as the most beautiful and mortifying supernatural opera ever performed in municipal government. Through the walls, I hear municipal employees gathering in the hallway. Their voices carry wonder and amazement at what sounds like professional musical theater happening in the council chamber. Is that coming from Mayor Grimm's office? It sounds like angels. Like the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Should we record this? It's incredible. I cover my face with both hands, the wail continuing despite my mortification. I fumble for my grandmother's lace handkerchief, carefully folded in my blazer pocket for exactly these emergencies, and try to stuff it into my mouth to muffle the supernatural performance. It doesn't work. The music just incorporates the lace into its composition, transforming my muffled sounds into something that resembles ethereal humming through silk. Thaddeus stands. I expect him to panic, to demand I stop disrupting municipal operations, to regret every moment of this magical entanglement. Instead, he calmly retrieves a pair of noise-canceling headphones from his emergency supplies drawer, because of course he has emergency supplies, organized and accessible, and moves around his desk with unhurried purpose. May I? His voice is gentle, asking permission despite the crisis. I nod frantically, unable to speak around the handkerchief and the wailing. He places the headphones over my ears with careful hands, adjusting them gently while maintaining respectful distance. His voice comes muffled but soothing through the noise-canceling technology. Your voice is creating something beautiful, Miss O'Malley, even if the timing is professionally inconvenient. The headphones dampen the supernatural feedback loop, the way my anxiety feeds my wailing, which increases my anxiety in an endless spiral. With the external sound muffled, I can feel the magic beginning to subside. The aria softens to manageable levels, though the council chamber continues to glow with soft golden light and orchestral accompaniment seems to emerge from the building's very walls. I remove the handkerchief from my mouth, breathing shakily. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Disrupt municipal operations with beautiful, supernatural music. Thaddeus returns to his chair, expression calm. I've dealt with worse crises. Last month, Jasper convinced half the street cats in Grimvale to organize a protest regarding insufficient tuna availability in municipal trash bins. Your stress wailing is comparatively melodious. A wet laugh escapes. That's a very diplomatic way of saying I just turned City Hall into an opera house. The council chamber needed better acoustics anyway. He picks up his coffee mug, taking a sip with the same composure he might show during a budget meeting. Though I suggest we relocate to the municipal archives in the basement. The historical records might provide precedent for our situation, and the soundproofed environment will prevent further public magical displays. He pauses, meeting my eyes with unexpected warmth. Not because your voice is disruptive, Ms. O'Malley, but because I suspect you'd prefer not to perform for an audience of curious municipal employees while we navigate this crisis. Relief floods through me. He understands. Not just the practical concerns about magical chaos affecting his mayoral duties, but the deeper embarrassment about my supernatural nature causing public spectacle. The archives sound perfect. I adjust my tortoiseshell glasses, counting bobby pins silently. If you're certain it won't interfere with your schedule, I've cleared my morning. Thaddeus stands, retrieving a leather portfolio that matches mine in careful organization. Magical contract complications take precedence over routine administrative tasks. He offers me his arm with old-fashioned courtesy, then seems to reconsider. Though perhaps we should maintain appropriate distance until we understand the magical parameters. Don't want the hallway to transform into a wedding chapel. Despite my lingering embarrassment, I smile. Very practical, Mayor Grimm. Thaddeus, he says quietly. Given the circumstances, I think we can dispense with excessive formality. at least when we're not performing for municipal employees. Moira. The name feels intimate, personal. And thank you for the headphones, and for treating this like a problem to solve rather than a disaster to escape. His expression softens. We're both professionals facing an unusual situation, Moira. The least we can do is approach it with systematic research and mutual respect. I remove the headphones, handing them back with steady hands. The golden light in the council chamber has faded to normal fluorescence. The orchestral accompaniment has subsided to silence. My supernatural nature has calmed, controlled through external support and internal counting. Together, we exit his office and navigate the hallway where municipal employees pretend they weren't just gathered to listen to accidental supernatural opera. Thaddeus nods to them with professional courtesy. I adjust my glasses and count bobby pins, maintaining composure through practiced precision. The basement archives await, quiet, soundproofed, full of historical records that might help us understand our magical predicament. And Thaddeus walks beside me with calm competence and unexpected kindness, treating my chaos like something worth working with, rather than something to escape. For the first time since the amoret transformed our professional interaction into supernatural entanglement, I feel something other than panic. I feel like maybe, just maybe, I've found the exact right person to help me navigate this beautiful disaster.
Chapter 4. Thaddeus. The municipal archives embrace us like a sanctuary I didn't know I desperately needed. Vernon Blackthorne rises from behind an antique desk that looks older than most of the buildings in Grimvale, his white hair gleaming in the warm lamplight that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Thaddeus. His voice carries the measured warmth of someone who's witnessed enough human drama to find affection in predictable patterns. And Ms. O'Malley, I presume? Your reputation for meticulous tax preparation precedes you. Moira adjusts her glasses, a gesture I'm beginning to recognize as her tell for nervousness. Mr. Blackthorne, I hope we're not interrupting your work. Please, Vernon. He gestures toward a magnificent mahogany research table surrounded by floor-to-ceiling shelves packed with leather-bound volumes. And you're not interrupting. You're providing purpose. There's nothing an archivist loves more than applying historical precedent to contemporary magical catastrophe. His elegant hands move with practiced precision as he guides us to the table, already pulling volumes from the shelves with the confidence of someone who knows exactly where every document resides. The books smell of old paper and magical ink, that peculiar combination of vanilla, copper, and something indefinably ethereal that makes the air itself feel scholarly. The amoret's interference in municipal matters. Vernon settles us at the table with the gentle authority of a professor arranging promising students. Not unprecedented, though certainly inconvenient for those involved. Let me provide you with the foundational cases before we progress to more contemporary complications. He produces an impressive collection of historical precedents, stacking them between Moira and me with commentary about the evolution of supernatural law. His white cotton gloves handle each volume with reverent care, and I notice Moira watching his archival technique with the same focused attention she brings to properly organized financial statements. Within minutes, she's pulled out a leather-bound notebook, color-coded tabs already visible along the edges, and begun taking notes in perfectly organized shorthand that flows across the pages with mathematical precision. Each heading gets underlined twice. Each legal citation receives its own numbered entry. Even her emergency magical contract research follows systems that would make a Supreme Court clerk weep with envy. Vernon excuses himself to retrieve additional materials, leaving us surrounded by centuries of supernatural legal complications. I open the first volume, dated 1847, and immediately discover a case involving a vampire who accidentally married his tax collector during a routine audit. According to this, I say, reading the faded script, the vampire attempted to compel the tax collector into reducing his property assessment, but the amoret interpreted his magical influence as romantic interest and bound them in a 50-year contract. Moira looks up from her notes, lips twitching. Did the tax reduction go through? Apparently, the vampire got both a spouse and a 20% property tax decrease. I turned the page carefully. The municipal court ruled that matrimonial bliss counted as adequate compensation for the lost revenue. Grimvale's budget office would have strong opinions about that precedent. Her dry observation makes me smile. Fortunately, I'm not trying to compel you into tax fraud, just trying to figure out how to file paperwork without it transforming into love poetry. A reasonable administrative goal. She returns to her notes, but I catch the corner of her mouth lifting. We settle into companionable research. The archive's scholarly silence broken only by the soft sound of turning pages and Moira's pen moving across paper. She organizes our materials as we work, creating small, efficient piles that somehow make the chaotic sprawl of supernatural legal precedent feel manageable. One stack for cases involving accidental binding, another for Amaret-specific incidents, a third for precedents regarding contract dissolution versus fulfillment. Her system transforms overwhelming research into something I can navigate, each pile labeled with neat handwriting on small slips of paper she produces from her portfolio, like a magician revealing endless handkerchiefs. I find myself stealing glances at her focused concentration, the way her auburn hair escapes her carefully controlled bun in small wisps that curl near her temples, the precise angle of her pen against paper, the small furrow between her eyebrows when she encounters particularly complex legal language, followed by the slight nod when she deciphers the meaning and adds it to her growing notes. She makes meticulous look beautiful rather than obsessive. Watching her work feels like observing a master craftsperson, every movement intentional, every decision purposeful, the final result something greater than the sum of organized parts. Here's an interesting one. I slide a volume toward her, pointing to a 1923 case. A Selkie filed a municipal complaint about a fishing license, and the Amaret bound her to the clerk who processed the paperwork. Moira leans closer to read, and I catch the faint scent of her perfume, something crisp and professional with subtle notes of vanilla that reminds me of freshly printed documents. They remained together for 43 years according to the footnote, raised 5 children. The Selkie eventually became harbour master and revolutionized Grimvale's maritime commerce regulations. So occasionally the Amaret's interference works out. I trace the elegant script with one finger, though I imagine the first few months were professionally awkward. Understatement, Mayor Grimm. She's back to formal address, but her eyes hold warmth. I can't imagine trying to explain to superiors why my filing systems reorganized themselves by romantic compatibility every time my magically bound partner entered the building. Please, call me Thaddeus when we're knee-deep in historical magical disasters. I flip through more pages. And speaking of filing systems, this 1960s case involved the Amaret binding 2 rival city planners during a zoning dispute. Moira's quiet laughter sounds like wind chimes in the archive's stillness. Let me guess. The building permits developed opinions about their relationship. Every zoning map in City Hall rearranged itself to position their offices adjacent to each other, regardless of the actual floor plans. I read the case notes with growing amusement. Eventually, the mayor gave up and just assigned them to joint projects. They're credited with Grimvale's entire downtown revitalization plan from 1967. And personally? She's leaning into the research now, genuinely curious despite our predicament. Married within the year. Still together when the case report was filed in 1995. I meet her eyes across the research table. Apparently, love-drunk zoning maps make surprisingly effective municipal planning tools. Her laugh is genuine this time, less nervous and more natural. The musical quality of her voice, even in casual conversation, speaks to something deep in my carefully guarded heart. Not the supernatural wail that makes windows vibrate, but the fundamental warmth beneath her professional precision. The way her voice lifts at the end of observations, turns thoughtful during analysis, softens with unexpected humor. I've spent years listening to people, constituent concerns, council complaints, community meetings. But Moira's voice carries a quality that makes listening feel less like mayoral duty and more like personal pleasure. Vernon returns with additional volumes, settling them on the table with quiet competence. These contain more recent precedents. The Amaret's patterns have remained remarkably consistent over the centuries, though modern municipal infrastructure provides new opportunities for romantic interference. Wonderful. I accept the books with diplomatic gratitude. And sure, Grimvale's digital filing systems will provide unprecedented chaos. Actually, the 2003 case study suggests electronic systems are particularly susceptible to love magic. Vernon adjusts his white gloves. Something about electricity and emotional energy creating feedback loops. I'll leave you to your research. He retreats to his desk, giving us privacy within the archive's protective silence. Moira has already opened the first volume, her pen poised above fresh notes. But her shoulders carry tension that wasn't there moments ago, and she's adjusting her glasses more frequently than necessary. Vernon mentioned feedback loops. Her voice is carefully neutral. My family would say that's rather appropriate for a defective Banshee. The words emerge with practiced dismissiveness, but I hear the pain beneath her professional composure. She continues writing, not meeting my eyes. Traditional Banshees sense death. We wail to warn families about impending loss. It's a sacred duty, passed down through generations of Irish lineage. Her pen stills against paper. I wail from stress. Tax season, difficult clients, municipal emergencies. Anything that triggers my anxiety creates the same supernatural response that my ancestors reserved for actual tragedy. She adjusts her glasses again, fingers trembling slightly. My family considers me defective, a Banshee who can't fulfill her purpose. They suggested I move somewhere my complications wouldn't embarrass the O'Malley name. The confession hangs in the archive's stillness. Moira stares at her notes, avoiding my eyes, vulnerability and shame written in the rigid set of her shoulders. Her pain touches something in me that mayoral composure usually keeps carefully hidden. I set down my book, leaning forward slightly. Your family is wrong. She looks up, surprise flickering across her features. I spend every day wondering if I'm adequate for this role. The words emerge with unexpected honesty. An ordinary human man trying to lead a community filled with extraordinary supernatural beings. Gargoyles who've witnessed centuries. Witches who bake magic into bread. Vampires who understand economics better than any MBA program could teach. I gesture toward the archives surrounding us. All these remarkable people deserve better than my limited understanding. What do I know about managing supernatural crises? I read books, file paperwork, hope my diplomatic training from a completely non-magical background somehow translates to situations involving love-drunk filing cabinets. Moira's emerald eyes widen behind her tortoiseshell frames. Every council meeting, I wonder if they're just being polite. If they keep me in this position out of kindness rather than actual competence. My voice drops quieter. If one day they'll realize an ordinary human simply can't understand enough to truly serve their needs. I've never admitted these insecurities aloud before. Never let anyone see past the diplomatic composure and measured responses that define my mayoral persona. But something about Moira's genuine listening and the archive's protective silence makes emotional honesty feel safer than usual deflection. So, when you say you're defective, I meet her gaze directly. I hear someone whose gift manifests differently than tradition expects. Someone whose supernatural nature responds to the genuine pressures of contemporary life, rather than following ancient patterns that might not serve modern needs. Moira's fingers still against her notebook, pen forgotten. Your voice creates beauty from stress, transforms anxiety into music. I lean slightly closer across the research table, drawn by the way lamplight catches her auburn hair as it escapes her controlled bun. That's not defective. That's adaptation, evolution, a supernatural gift that serves the world we actually live in rather than the one your ancestors inhabited. Her breath catches, barely audible in the archive's quiet. And any family who can't see that. I reach across the table, gently touching her hand where it rests near her notes. Any family who would rather you hide than help you understand your unique value. They don't deserve your loyalty. My voice carries absolute certainty. Your voice, even in distress, creates something beautiful rather than destructive. The world needs more beauty, Moira, not less. Especially beauty that emerges from genuine emotion rather than artificial control. The moment stretches between us, charged with connection that feels entirely separate from magical compulsion. This isn't the amorette's interference making my heart beat faster. This is genuine recognition of someone who understands insecurity and inadequacy because she carries her own version of the same fears. Someone who transforms those fears into meticulous organization and careful competence instead of letting them create paralysis. Someone whose voice makes the archive's silence feel less lonely and more intimate. Moira's fingers turn beneath mine, intertwining with deliberate choice. Her emerald eyes hold mine with growing warmth that makes the lamplight seem suddenly brighter. Your calm strength makes me feel safe enough to be vulnerable. Her whisper carries the same musical quality as her laughter. I've never experienced that before. Never met someone who could witness my chaos and respond with understanding instead of judgment or fear. Her grip tightens slightly. You're not inadequate, Thaddeus. You're exactly what this community needs. Someone who leads with compassion instead of power, who treats supernatural crises like problems requiring systematic solutions, rather than threats requiring defensive responses. She adjusts our joined hands, thumb brushing across my knuckles. Someone who sees people first and supernatural complications second. That's not ordinary. That's extraordinary in ways your constituents absolutely recognize, even if your self-doubt won't let you see it. We sit in the lamplit intimacy of centuries-old love stories and legal precedents, hands joined across research materials that document decades of accidental magical binding. Around us, Vernon's archives hold the carefully catalogued evidence that the Amoret has been creating unexpected connections for generations. But what's developing between Moira and me feels separate from magical interference. This recognition of shared vulnerability, mutual understanding, complementary strengths, this emerges from genuine connection rather than supernatural compulsion. The realization both thrills and terrifies me equally. Whatever magical contract binds us legally, something deeper and more authentic is beginning to develop between us personally. Something that has nothing to do with love-drunk filing cabinets and everything to do with finding someone who understands the fear of being inadequate, while still choosing to show up, do the work, and hope competence eventually catches up to responsibility. Moira's fingers remain intertwined with mine, warm and certain. And for the first time since this magical chaos began, I wonder if the Amoret might actually understand something about compatible hearts that our systematic research and careful logic haven't yet discovered.
Chapter 5. Moira. Vernon's triumphant exclamation pulls me from the warm intimacy of Thaddeus's hand in mine. Aha! Here we are. He emerges from between towering shelves, ancient leather-bound volume held aloft like a championship trophy, white cotton gloves protecting the fragile pages from centuries-old damage. Precedent established 1847, County of Silverbrook versus the Amoret, case number 73/B. Dissolution granted on grounds of magical interference with municipal operations. My stomach drops despite the victory in his voice. Thaddeus releases my hand with professional efficiency that shouldn't sting, but does. That sounds promising. Indeed. Vernon settles the volume onto our research table, lamplight illuminating gilt-edged pages covered in elegant copperplate script. The dissolution was granted after proving the magical bond created measurable disruption to official governmental function, which, given the state of your filing systems and our current botanical situation outside, should be quite straightforward to demonstrate. He adjusts his reading glasses, scanning the precedent with scholarly precision. However, there are rather specific requirements for filing such a petition. The tightness begins in my chest, familiar, manageable. The same pressure that accompanies tax deadline stress, or particularly complicated supernatural accounting audits. I can handle requirements. Requirements mean procedures, and procedures mean orderly steps toward organized solutions. What sort of requirements? My voice remains steady, professional, perfectly controlled despite the growing pressure behind my ribs. Vernon's finger traces down the page. The petition must be filed jointly by both parties, demonstrating mutual desire for dissolution. It requires submission to the Regional Supernatural Legal Council. They meet quarterly. Next session is in 6 weeks, along with supporting documentation about the bond's impact on municipal operations. 6 weeks. I can organize anything in 6 weeks. My shoulders relax slightly as I reach for my notebook, ready to create color-coded timelines and systematic preparation protocols. The documentation must include complete, magical honesty about all feelings involved. Vernon continues reading without looking up. Emotional transparency assessments from both parties. Detailed disclosure about romantic attachment levels, and sworn magical statements about whether the bond feels genuine or artificially induced. The pressure in my chest tightens sharply. There's also a required in-person testimony component. He turns the page carefully. Both parties must appear before the full council to answer questions under magical truth compulsion about the nature of their connection. Standard procedure for dissolution cases. Prevents abuse of the system by parties attempting to escape legitimate bonds through false claims. My fingers freeze against my notebook page. Appear before a council. Answer questions. Under magical compulsion about my feelings. My actual, genuine, terrifyingly complicated feelings about the mayor sitting beside me, whose quiet understanding makes me want to reorganize filing cabinets until the panic subsides into something manageable. And the paperwork itself. Vernon pulls another volume from his stack, spreading official-looking forms across our research table like evidence of my impending doom. Quite extensive, I'm afraid. Form SSC 14 for Bond Dissolution Petition. Form SSC 14A for Municipal Impact Assessment. Form SSC 14B for Individual Emotional Disclosure. Each form features dense text in multiple languages, official seals that shimmer with verification magic, and blank spaces demanding detailed written explanations about romantic attachment levels, emotional authenticity assessments, and comparative analysis between magically induced versus genuine attraction. The kind of bureaucratic emotional transparency that makes my professional persona want to flee into tax code interpretation until the feelings become numbers I can systematically organize. Both parties must complete their disclosure forms separately. Vernon taps Form SSC 14B with scholarly emphasis. Then submit them simultaneously to prevent coordination of responses. The council examines discrepancies between statements to determine authenticity. He continues explaining procedures and protocols, but his voice fades beneath the growing pressure in my chest. I stare at the disclosure form's first question. Describe in detail your emotional response to your bonded partner, distinguishing between attraction you attribute to magical influence versus genuine personal connection. How do I distinguish? How does anyone distinguish when the magic started interfering before I'd properly processed my initial attraction to Thaddeus's diplomatic competence and quiet strength? When every interaction since has been colored by supernatural interference that makes filing cabinets reorganize themselves and creates botanical chaos from my stress. Second question. Rate your romantic attachment level on a scale of 1 to 10, with supporting explanation for your assessment. Supporting explanation. As if feelings come with footnotes and citation requirements instead of arriving as chaotic, unquantifiable emotional responses that resist systematic categorization. Third question. Under magical oath, state whether you believe your connection to your bonded partner represents authentic compatibility or artificial magical compulsion. The words blur as panic rises. I'll have to stand before a council of supernatural legal experts and admit under magical compulsion that I might actually be developing real feelings for Thaddeus. That his understanding when I admitted my family's rejection touched something deeper than professional courtesy. That his quiet strength makes me feel safe enough to be vulnerable in ways I've never experienced before. That I'm terrified these feelings might be real rather than magically induced. because real feelings are unpredictable and chaotic, and completely resistant to systematic management protocols. A small whimper escapes my throat, musical, involuntary, the first warning sign that my control is slipping. Moira? Thaddeus's voice carries gentle concern. Are you all right? The whimper becomes a hum, vibrating in my chest where the pressure has reached critical levels. I try to force it down through my 19th stress management protocol, but the hum grows stronger, seeking release through the only outlet my Banshee nature recognizes. Perhaps we should take a break from the paperwork. Vernon begins. The hum becomes a melody, rising from my chest with the same musical quality my grandmother's voice carried when she sang Irish ballads about heartbreak and longing. Except, this isn't controlled singing. This is my supernatural nature responding to emotional overwhelm with the only expression it understands. Before Vernon can reach for the emergency earplugs I notice hanging from a hook near his desk, because of course the municipal archivist keeps earplugs readily accessible, my full Banshee wail erupts through the archives. My voice pours out in cascading waves of melody that carry every ounce of fear and confusion and terrified hope swirling through my chest. The magical sound resonates through the archive's thick walls, vibrating ancient shelves, and making Vernon's carefully organized legal precedents tremble in their designated positions. But my distress call doesn't stop at the archive's boundaries. My supernatural voice finds City Hall's ventilation system, flowing through ancient ductwork and modern HVAC additions with the same efficiency that makes professional building inspectors praise the mayor's commitment to infrastructure maintenance. The melody carries through vents and hallways, spiraling up staircases and into administrative offices, then spilling out through exterior ventilation ports and into downtown Grimvale's autumn afternoon. Oh dear. Vernon's muffled voice barely penetrates my wailing. That's rather more powerful than expected. The pressure in my chest demands release, and my voice obliges with sustained notes that seem to contain every fear I've suppressed through careful organization and systematic control. Fear of inadequacy, fear of rejection, fear of my supernatural nature causing harm despite my best efforts at management, fear that these feelings for Thaddeus might be genuine and therefore completely beyond my ability to categorize or control. My phone buzzes against the research table, vibrating with incoming messages that I'm currently too occupied wailing to check. Thaddeus's phone joins the chorus, both devices dancing across scattered dissolution paperwork with increasing urgency. Through the haze of my continued distress call, I hear Vernon speaking rapidly into his own phone. Yes, Thaddeus, she's having a rather significant episode. No physical danger, but the magical resonance might affect. Oh my. Yes, I see the problem. My wail finally subsides enough for me to gasp actual oxygen, chest heaving with the exertion of sustained, supernatural vocalization. Vernon holds his phone toward me, screen displaying a text from someone named Cordelia, accompanied by a photo that makes my remaining breath catch. Main Street sidewalk cracks bloom with impossible roses, their red and pink petals spilling across the pavement, like organic evidence of my emotional chaos. Storefront window boxes explode with summer flowers, daisies and sunflowers and morning glories, despite Grimvale's perpetual autumn weather. The entire downtown business district has transformed into an enchanted garden. Dense foliage, forcing pedestrians to navigate through suddenly verdant pathways that weren't there 15 minutes ago. Oh no. The words emerge as barely a whisper. Oh no, oh no, oh no. My phone continues buzzing. I grab it with shaking hands, reading increasingly frantic texts from Finley. Moira. What's happening? Main Street is becoming a forest. Traffic can't get through. Flowers everywhere. Literally everywhere. Emergency services asking if this is a public safety hazard. Do magical flowers pose structural risks to buildings?
Chapter 6. Thaddeus. The archive's emergency exit deposits me directly onto Main Street, where I immediately confront what can only be described as botanical anarchy given municipal form. Impossible roses, deep crimson and shocking pink and cream-coloured varieties that shouldn't coexist in the same climate zone, let alone the same sidewalk crack, spill across the pavement in dense profusion. They've claimed territory with the aggressive enthusiasm of invasive species, transforming the carefully maintained concrete into organic pathways that force pedestrians to navigate around flowering obstacles. Sunflowers taller than parking meters rise from what were sensible planters this morning. Morning glories twist around street signs, their trumpet-shaped blooms opening despite the afternoon hour, because apparently Moira's magical distress doesn't respect standard botanical schedules. The flower shop's window boxes have exploded into miniature meadows, cascading over the brick facade like floral waterfalls. The cafe's outdoor seating area has become a garden bower, climbing roses creating natural arbors over tables, where customers sit sipping coffee surrounded by impossibly lush greenery. Mrs. Henderson emerges from her shop carrying a watering can and wearing an expression of pure delight. Mayor Grimm. She gestures broadly at the roses currently colonizing the sidewalk in front of her establishment. Would you look at this? Free botanical display, and I didn't even have to order from the wholesale distributor. These varieties are usually $60 per stem, and here they are just blooming away like weeds. Mrs. Henderson. I switch automatically into my diplomatic crisis management voice, the one that served me well through 5 years of supernatural municipal emergencies. I apologize for the unexpected, seasonal supernatural fluctuations affecting downtown businesses. We're working to assess the full scope of the situation and implement appropriate containment protocols. Containment? She looks genuinely confused. Why would we want to contain free flowers? Do you know what a display like this would cost during wedding season? This is excellent for business, Mayor. Already had 3 people come in asking if I can recreate this aesthetic for their events. Oh. The municipal emergency speech I've been mentally preparing deflates slightly. So you're not concerned about the structural implications of aggressive root systems or potential insurance liability for sidewalk navigation hazards. Honey, I run a flower shop in a town where magical bakery treats float through the streets at least twice a month. I'm pretty sure we can handle some enthusiastic roses. She pats my arm with the comfortable familiarity of someone who's watched me learn to be mayor through trial by supernatural fire. Besides, they're gorgeous. Whoever's having magical difficulties clearly has excellent taste in botanical aesthetics. Before I can formulate a response that doesn't reveal exactly whose magical difficulties we're discussing, Marcus from the cafe approaches carrying a tray of iced coffees. Mayor! Perfect timing. He offers me a coffee that I accept on autopilot. Quick question about these roses. They're attracting customers like nothing we've ever seen. People stopping to take photos, families coming by to enjoy the scenery. We've already had our best afternoon sales in 3 months. Is there any chance this could be a permanent community beautification project? I take a long sip of coffee while frantically categorizing the municipal forms that might conceivably apply to accidentally permanent magical landscaping. That would require extensive documentation regarding sustainable supernatural garden maintenance and long-term magical impact assessments. So you're saying there's a chance? Marcus grins with the optimism of someone whose business profits just increased 30% due to magical intervention. Because I'm already thinking about how to incorporate outdoor evening service once we figure out lighting solutions. These roses are incredible for ambience. A small crowd has gathered, drawn by the unusual botanical situation and the presence of their mayor standing in the middle of Main Street's newly enchanted garden. I recognize most of the faces: Mr. Carruthers from the hardware store, the Yamamoto sisters who run the bookshop, young Timothy from the coffee roastery, Mrs. Blackwood who handles property management for half the commercial district. All of them look curious rather than upset, interested instead of alarmed. This is not how municipal emergencies typically proceed. Is this like when Pella's emotions made it rain cupcakes last spring? Mrs. Yamamoto asks with genuine interest rather than accusation, because that was delightful except for the cleanup costs, and these flowers seem significantly more permanent. Or like when Eric's protective instincts made the gargoyles on City Hall rearrange themselves into heart shapes. Her sister adds helpfully, that was very sweet, even if it did require specialized masonry consultation. The current situation involves seasonal supernatural fluctuations, I repeat, clinging to my prepared municipal language like a diplomatic life raft. We're implementing appropriate response protocols to assess long-term impact and ensure public safety. Thaddeus. Pella's warm voice interrupts my bureaucratic spiral. She materializes from the rose-covered crowd, carrying a wicker basket that smells of butter and vanilla, and something floral that probably shouldn't work in baked goods but absolutely does because Pella's magic understands flavor compatibility better than any culinary school. You can stop with the official mayor speech. Everyone knows someone's having a magical episode, and everyone's completely fine with it because these flowers are lovely. She offers the basket, which contains cookies shaped like tiny roses and daisies, each one dusted with what appears to be edible glitter that catches the afternoon light. Stress relief cookies, made them specifically for calming supernatural anxiety. The lavender helps with emotional regulation, and the honey promotes feelings of safety and acceptance. That's very thoughtful. I accept a cookie shaped like a miniature sunflower because refusing Pella's baking would be both rude and foolish. It tastes like sunshine and garden parties, and the kind of gentle magic that makes people feel cared for rather than overwhelmed. Though I'm not sure I'm the one experiencing supernatural anxiety at the moment. No, but you're experiencing mere anxiety about someone else's supernatural anxiety, which is basically the same thing with extra paperwork. She pats my arm with the same comfortable familiarity Mrs. Henderson displayed. How's our new Banshee friend handling all this? Our new Banshee friend. The phrasing makes something warm and complicated happen in my chest. The community's immediate acceptance of Moira, their instinctive protective response to her distress. The way Pella somehow knows exactly what kind of crisis we're managing without requiring official explanations. She's mortified, I admit, abandoning the diplomatic distance that suddenly feels exhausting, currently hiding in the archives convinced she's caused a civic disaster. Well, that's just silly. Pella surveys the transformed street with obvious approval. This is barely a disaster. It's more like an unexpected community beautification project with excellent aesthetic cohesion. The color palette is particularly well balanced. Eric's emerges from the crowd with his characteristic silent approach, appearing at Pella's shoulder like a stone guardian manifesting from shadows. His silver eyes assess the botanical situation with centuries of crisis management experience. The magical signature suggests emotional overflow rather than intentional casting, he observes in his measured way, which means standard containment won't work. The flowers will remain until the source emotion resolves itself naturally. So we're looking at permanent magical landscaping. I'm already mentally drafting the documentation requirements for supernatural garden maintenance ordinances. Possibly. Though if the source accepts her abilities rather than fighting them, the magic might settle into sustainable equilibrium. Eric's glances at me with something that might be sympathy from someone less stoic. The harder she tries to suppress her nature, the more unpredictable the manifestations become. He speaks from personal experience, I realize, from centuries of trying to be something other than what his guardian nature demanded, from the painful process of learning to accept protective instincts that once seemed like weaknesses. How do I help her reach that acceptance without overstepping mayoral boundaries? The question emerges before I can apply proper diplomatic filters. Eric's slight smile suggests my carefully maintained professional distance might not be as carefully maintained as I believe. By being honest about why her well-being matters to you beyond civic duty. Pella makes a small sound of agreement while distributing more stress relief cookies to the gathering crowd. Also by making sure everyone knows these flowers are a gift rather than a problem. Public perception shapes magical confidence significantly. She's right, of course. The community's response to supernatural manifestations can either reinforce shame or provide the support needed for acceptance and growth. I turn to address the assembled residents with renewed purpose. The current botanical display represents a unique opportunity for enhanced community aesthetics and potential tourism development. I propose we treat this as an experimental municipal beautification initiative, rather than an emergency requiring immediate remediation. Mrs. Henderson applauds. Marcus raises his coffee cup in salute. The Yamamoto sisters nod approvingly. Does this mean we can keep the roses? Timothy asks hopefully, because the roastery's Instagram following has increased 200% in the last hour from people posting photos. Pending appropriate documentation and sustainable maintenance planning, yes. I pull out my phone to begin the inevitably complex process of creating municipal ordinances for magically manifested landscaping. I'll draft preliminary guidelines for community supernatural garden management and present them at next week's council meeting. Thaddeus? Cordelia's voice appears at my elbow with the uncanny timing she's demonstrated since I was elected mayor. The silver-haired witch materializes from between two particularly aggressive rose bushes, as though she's been waiting for precisely this moment to offer cryptic observations disguised as helpful advice. Might I suggest that some situations benefit from emotional honesty more than administrative documentation? The situation requires both. I maintain my diplomatic tone despite her knowing expression. Proper municipal planning ensures long-term sustainability, while proper emotional acknowledgement ensures personal happiness. She adjusts her constellation earrings, which actually twinkle in the afternoon light. Some magical contracts simply reveal compatibility truths that people are too cautious to acknowledge naturally. Fighting the revelation only creates more chaos than accepting what the heart already knows. The way she looks at me suggests we're not discussing botanical management anymore. I'm approaching this as mayor managing a community crisis, I say, with significantly less conviction than the statement deserves. Are you? Cordelia's smile carries the weight of someone who's observed centuries of people lying to themselves about their feelings. Because from here it looks like a man protecting someone he cares about from public embarrassment, while convincing an entire street of business owners that her magical abilities are assets rather than liabilities. That's just responsible crisis management. The heart often knows what the mind fears to admit, dear boy. She pats my arm with surprising gentleness. The question isn't whether you care for her. That's already obvious to anyone paying attention. The question is whether you're brave enough to acknowledge those feelings while they're still complicated by magical contracts and municipal obligations. Before I can formulate a response that doesn't confirm her observations, she glides away through the roses with the satisfied air of someone who's planted exactly the seeds of self-awareness she intended. The afternoon progresses into early evening, as more residents arrive to admire the unexpected garden. Someone produces strings of fairy lights. Marcus extends his cafe service onto the transformed sidewalk. The hardware store starts selling decorative planters to complement the magical roses. What began as Moira's distress call has transformed into an impromptu community celebration. Grimvale's residents adapting to botanical chaos with the same creative flexibility they apply to floating pastries and spontaneous magical weather. I field questions about irrigation systems and route management while mentally cataloguing the various municipal forms that might apply to this situation. But every conversation circles back to the same gentle concern. Are we sure whoever caused this knows the community considers it a gift rather than a disaster? You seem awfully invested in protecting whoever's having magical difficulties, Mr. Carruthers observes while helping set up additional seating. More than standard mayoral concern, if you don't mind me saying. Professional obligation demands I ensure all residents feel safe expressing their supernatural nature without fear of judgment or backlash. The response emerges automatically, practiced through years of diplomatic deflection. He doesn't sound convinced. And the fact that you've checked your phone 17 times in the last hour while looking toward the archives has nothing to do with personal concern. Mrs. Blackwood laughs softly. Let the man have his privacy, Arthur. Though I will say it's nice seeing our mayor finally showing interest in someone. You've been married to municipal duty long enough. Heat creeps up my neck, despite my best efforts at professional composure. I'm simply ensuring proper communication regarding the ongoing situation. Of course you are, dear. Mrs. Henderson joins the conversation with obvious amusement. Just like you were ensuring proper communication when you spent 45 minutes in the archives this afternoon, researching magical contract law, instead of addressing the budget review that's been on your desk for 3 weeks. The knowing looks exchanged between long-time Grimvale residents suggest my protective feelings have become community knowledge, despite my careful diplomatic language. By the time sunset paints the magical roses in golden light, The emergency response has evolved into something resembling a street festival. Children play among the sunflowers, while parents sip coffee and admire the impossible garden. Someone's brought a guitar. The bookshop has moved their poetry section outside to complement the romantic atmosphere. Grimvale has taken Moira's most vulnerable moment and transformed it into community celebration, accepting her chaotic supernatural nature as just another thread in the town's magical tapestry. The realization makes something crack in the careful walls I've built around my heart, the ones that keep professional obligations safely separate from personal desire, that protect against the vulnerability of wanting something I'm not certain I deserve. Because watching my community rally to support someone I'm growing to care about, seeing them transform potential shame into public acceptance, reminds me exactly why I love leading these extraordinary people who treat magical flower explosions as opportunities rather than disasters, and forces me to confront Cordelia's uncomfortable truth. My concern for Moira stopped being purely professional somewhere between her first stress wail and her quiet admission that her family considers her defective. I've already made my choice, I realize, as the fairy lights begin twinkling among the roses. Protecting Moira's dignity matters more than maintaining careful distance. Supporting her through this crisis outweighs any professional obligation to remain objective. Even if acknowledging those feelings terrifies me as much as it thrills me, even if it means accepting that the magical contract binding us together might be revealing truths I've been too cautious to admit naturally. My phone buzzes with a text from Vernon. She's calmed down, might be ready to see the results of her distress call now. Gently, I look around at the transformed street, at the community that's turned chaos into beauty, at the evidence of how thoroughly Grimvale has already accepted our Banshee accountant as one of their own. Time to show Moira exactly what her voice created when it finally allowed itself to be heard.
Chapter 7. Moira. The archives feel different at 9:47 p.m. Vernon left 20 minutes ago with promises to return tomorrow morning with additional historical precedents, his footsteps echoing down the marble hallway until silence settled over the rows of leather-bound volumes and filing cabinets that smell of dust and old paper, and centuries of meticulously preserved bureaucratic history. Lamplight casts golden shadows across the petition paperwork spread across the massive oak research table, illuminating my 17 organizational systems that have somehow failed to impose any actual order on the supernatural legal requirements. 3 different colored pens lie beside my carefully categorized folders: blue for emotional honesty clauses, green for magical contract specifications, red for sections requiring joint signatures. But the forms themselves remain stubbornly blank, despite 2 hours of concentrated effort. How does one write complete honesty about feelings involved when the feelings themselves are a tangled mess of magical compulsion, professional mortification, and something terrifyingly genuine that I can't quite name? Thaddeus works beside me with quiet concentration, his reading glasses sliding down his nose as he reviews a particularly dense section of supernatural contract law. He's removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms that I've noticed 3 times now. Definitely 3, possibly 17 if I'm being completely honest. And occasionally passes me documents without needing to ask what I need. Listen to this one, he says softly, breaking the comfortable silence we've settled into. Precedent from 1847. Should the fated bond prove inconvenient to either party's commercial interests, a formal apology to Cupid himself must be rendered in sonnet form, minimum 14 lines, with proper rhyme scheme. They specified the rhyme scheme in supernatural law. Despite everything, the chaos downtown, the humiliation of my public magical breakdown, the overwhelming complexity of the petition requirements, I find myself smiling. Did anyone actually follow through? According to the footnotes, yes. The Supernatural Legal Counsel received 47 terrible sonnets that year alone. Vernon showed me one earlier. It rhymed devotion with ocean commotion and included the phrase Cupid's foolish potion.
That's dreadful.
That's supernatural bureaucracy. His eyes crinkle with gentle humor. Makes our current situation feel almost reasonable by comparison. Our current situation. The careful language neither of us has been willing to examine too closely. The way he says, our, instead of your. The fact that he's been here all evening helping me research solutions when he could have delegated this to Vernon, or filed the paperwork with diplomatic efficiency, and returned to the 17 other municipal crises probably demanding his attention. The magical bond between us has been a constant low hum all evening. Like background music I've learned to tune out through careful focus on bureaucratic details. But exhaustion is weakening my defenses. The carefully constructed barriers I maintain between my professional competence and the chaotic supernatural nature constantly threatening to break through. And the hum is becoming harder to ignore, especially when Thaddeus is close enough that I can smell his cologne. Something subtle and woodsy that makes me want to lean closer, instead of maintaining proper professional distance. Moira, his voice carries concern. Are you all right? Fine. Just tired. I adjust my glasses 17 times now, definitely 17, and try to focus on the emotional honesty clause that requires both parties to acknowledge the full truth of romantic sentiment, however inconvenient or magically influenced such truth may prove. But focusing becomes impossible when I suddenly sense his worry, like a whisper in my mind. Not words, exactly, but emotions so clear they might as well be spoken aloud. His fear that I'm pushing myself too hard, that he should have insisted on postponing this research until tomorrow, that his presence might be making this harder instead of easier, that he's somehow failing to provide the support I need. I gasp softly, pressing my hand against my chest where the magical bond pulses with unfamiliar intensity.
What's wrong?
Thaddeus sets down his pen immediately, complete attention focused on me with the same intensity he probably brings to municipal emergencies. I can feel... I stop, uncertain how to explain something I don't understand. Your emotions, just now. Your worry that I'm exhausted, your guilt about keeping me here so late. His eyes widen behind his glasses. I was just thinking exactly that. I know. I felt it. The realization should be terrifying. More evidence that the magical contract is invading our privacy, forcing intimacy we haven't chosen. But something in his expression makes me continue. You're afraid you're failing to help me properly. That you should know the right thing to say or do, but you're just an ordinary human, trying to manage supernatural chaos without proper training.
Stop.
The word comes out rough, almost broken. How are you?
The bond.
It's stronger now. I think because we're tired and our defenses are... My voice catches as another wave of his emotion crashes into me, so profound it steals my breath. His certainty that Grimvale deserves someone more extraordinary than an ordinary human man trying his best. His fear that he's fundamentally inadequate for the extraordinary people depending on him. His bone-deep terror that one day everyone will realize he's not worthy of the trust they've placed in him. And beneath that, tangled with his worry about failing the community, his fear that I see him the same way, as inadequate, ordinary, not enough. The synchronized emotions hit me like a tidal wave. His fear of inadequacy crashes into my terror of being defective, creating a feedback loop of shared insecurity that overwhelms every carefully maintained professional barrier I've spent 5 years constructing. Because I know this feeling, this absolute certainty that you're fundamentally flawed despite your best efforts, that everyone else is extraordinary while you're just pretending, trying desperately to be good enough, while secretly knowing you'll never measure up. My family's voices echo in my mind like a Banshee chorus. Defective, broken, shameful. Can't even wail properly. What use is a banshee who signals stress instead of death? Tears blur my vision, spotting the legal documents with dampness that will probably invalidate whatever we manage to write. I'm sorry, I whisper, the words catching on sobs I can't quite control. I'm so sorry for my chaotic magic, for the disaster downtown, for being unable to be the calm, controlled professional everyone needs, for being the kind of banshee even my own family considers shameful. Moira, you deserve better than this. The confession tears out of me with the musical quality of genuine banshee grief, not the manufactured stress wails I've spent years trying to suppress. Grimvale deserves better than an accountant who turns downtown into a botanical garden because she can't manage her own emotions properly. You deserve someone who doesn't require noise complaints and emergency protocols and specialized soundproofing. Stop. Please stop. Thaddeus's voice breaks on the words, and through my tears, I realize he's crying too. Not the polite dampness of diplomatic emotion, the careful, controlled response of someone who's learned to manage public grief with mayoral professionalism, but genuine tears streaming down his face as years of carefully contained fears finally break through his composed exterior. I'm the one who's not enough, he says, voice raw with honesty that strips away every professional facade. Grimvale deserves someone extraordinary, a witch or shapeshifter, or someone with actual magic who understands what it means to be supernatural. Not an ordinary human man who learned crisis management from books and tries so hard to do right by people who are so much more remarkable than he'll ever be. You think you're not extraordinary? The question emerges between sobs, disbelief momentarily overpowering my own grief. I know I'm not. He removes his glasses to wipe his eyes with shaking hands. I'm just someone who loves this community enough to keep trying. But that doesn't make me worthy of leading people who can literally transform the world with their gifts. And it definitely doesn't make me worthy of someone as brilliant and brave as... He stops, but I feel the end of that sentence through the magical bond pulsing between us. As you, the shared vulnerability strips away every professional barrier we've carefully maintained, leaving just two frightened people who've spent years trying to be perfect for everyone else, while secretly believing we're fundamentally flawed beneath our competent facades. Two people who've built entire lives around being good enough, professional enough, controlled enough, to deserve belonging in communities that terrify us with their extraordinary nature. Two people who are absolutely convinced we're the inadequate ones. Without conscious decision, I reach for him across the paperwork, scattering petition forms and colored pens. My careful composure dissolves completely as Thaddeus pulls me into his arms and holds me, while we both release years of carefully contained fears about never being enough. He's warm and solid, and shaking with the same grief that's tearing through me. His shirt grows damp beneath my cheek as I sob against his shoulder, letting years of suppressed shame finally surface. Every family gathering where my cousins demonstrated proper death sense wailing, while I set off car alarms with my stress. Every disappointed look from my mother when I couldn't even predict Great Aunt Moira's passing, despite being named after her. Every careful lie I've told about why I moved to America, instead of admitting I was running from a heritage that never fit properly. I don't know if what I'm feeling is real or just magical compulsion, I whisper against his shoulder, my voice carrying the musical quality of honest emotion rather than supernatural stress. but I've never felt so understood by anyone. His arms tighten around me, and I feel his response through the bond before he speaks it aloud. The terrifying certainty that whatever brought them together, the way I make him feel isn't artificial. Protected, he murmurs against my hair, the words muffled but absolutely clear. You make me feel protected. Like someone finally sees past the competent mayor facade to the frightened man underneath, and values him anyway. Like I'm worthy of love instead of just respect. You are! The words emerge fierce despite my tears. You're so worthy. You lead this extraordinary community with such grace and patience and genuine care. You make people feel safe being exactly who they are. So do you. He pulls back just enough to cup my face in his hands, thumbs gently wiping away tears. You help people navigate systems designed to make them feel inadequate. You turn complicated regulations into protection instead of punishment. You make chaos feel manageable. My chaos is what caused your chaos created something beautiful. His voice carries absolute conviction. You turn downtown into a garden because your emotions are powerful enough to transform the world. That's not defective. That's extraordinary. We stare at each other through tears and lamplight, and I realize we're both seeing clearly for the first time. Not the professional facades we present to the world, but the frightened, hopeful, fundamentally worthy people underneath. He leans forward slowly, giving me time to pull away, but I'm already closing the distance between us. Our first kiss tastes of tears and honesty, and years of careful isolation finally breaking open into genuine connection. His hands tremble as they frame my face, gentle and reverent, like I'm something precious rather than chaotic. I touch his face with wonder, tracing the strong line of his jaw, feeling the rough stubble beneath my fingertips, discovering the reality of him beyond the polished mayoral exterior. We kiss again, soft and slow, exploring this new intimacy with the cautious hope of people who've convinced themselves they don't deserve tenderness. His glasses bump against my cheek. I laugh. Actual laughter, not the careful professional politeness I've mastered. And he smiles against my mouth before kissing me again. I'm terrified, I whisper between kisses. Me too. What if the magic is lying to us? What if it's telling the truth we were too frightened to admit? The question hangs between us as we hold each other in the lamplight, surrounded by centuries of love stories and legal precedents documenting every possible complication of supernatural romance. The petition forms lie scattered across the table, still blank, still demanding emotional honesty we haven't been able to write. But maybe we've just demonstrated it instead, through tears and confession, and the vulnerable trust required to let someone witness your breaking. The enchanted inkwell on Vernon's desk begins glowing with warm golden light. Not the chaotic pink of Amoret interference that turned our municipal paperwork into romantic poetry, but something deeper and more genuine. Like sunlight through honey, or the first rays of dawn touching ancient stone. The magical bond between us pulses with the same golden warmth. No longer the intrusive hum of forced connection, but something that feels almost like recognition, like approval, like whatever magic governs true connection has witnessed our emotional authenticity and found it worthy. Does that mean I start? I don't know. Thaddeus tightens his arms around me, resting his forehead against mine. But it feels different than before. Like maybe our feelings are real enough to matter, real enough to trust. Real enough to fight for, I think, but don't say. Real enough to risk believing in, despite every fear and insecurity that tells us we're not extraordinary enough to deserve magical romance. The golden light spreads across the archive room, warming the shadows and illuminating the truth we finally admitted. Sometimes, the most extraordinary magic comes from two ordinary people, brave enough to be honestly, vulnerably, imperfectly themselves with each other. And sometimes, that's more than enough.
Chapter 8. Thaddeus. The parchment materializes at exactly 8 a.m., unfurling itself across my desk with the self-important rustle of official supernatural correspondence. I've been mayor long enough to recognize the gilt edges and formal script of the Supernatural Legal Counsel. They favor the kind of pompous presentation that makes even parking citations look like royal decrees. R.E. Petition for Dissolution of Magically Binding Contract, Case Number AMR 2847 GV. A public hearing is hereby scheduled for the town square of Grimvale at 2 p.m. 3 days hence. Both contracted parties must provide testimony under truth enchantment regarding genuine feelings toward the magical bond and each other. Testimony will be evaluated for emotional authenticity and romantic compatibility. Note: any attempted deception, emotional dishonesty, or deliberate obscuration during testimony will result in permanent magical binding, without possibility of dissolution. The contract will become irrevocable for the remainder of both parties' natural lives. My coffee goes cold in my hand as I read the final paragraph 3 times. Vernon's warning from our initial consultation echoing with new urgency. Truth enchantments don't just detect lies, Mayor. They reveal the emotional truth beneath the words. If either of you attempts to hide genuine feelings or fabricate indifference, the magic will interpret that deception as grounds for permanent binding. Public testimony. Truth enchantment. The entire town watching as magic compels me to either admit I've fallen in love with Moira O'Malley or risk trapping us both in eternal magical bondage if I try to lie. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I set down my coffee and pull out my legal pad, the same one I've used for years to draft municipal responses, policy statements, and carefully worded diplomatic solutions to supernatural crises. My hand hovers over the blank page as I try to imagine standing in the town square, facing my constituents while magical compulsion strips away every carefully constructed professional barrier I've spent 5 years building. Draft 1. Statement for Truth Enchantment Testimony. I respect Ms. O'Malley's professional competence and acknowledge that our proximity has created some emotional complexity, but I believe we can resolve this situation while maintaining appropriate boundaries. The words look ridiculous even before I finish writing them. Truth enchantment won't just detect the lie, it'll broadcast my actual feelings to everyone present like a supernatural megaphone, announcing that their mayor is hopelessly smitten with the woman whose stress wails created an impromptu downtown garden. I crumple the page and start again. Draft 2. Alternative approach. Working with Moira has been illuminating. She's brilliant and kind and sees beauty in chaos. When she cries over her supposed inadequacy, I want to catalogue every extraordinary thing about her until she believes. Absolutely not. That reads like a love letter, not legal testimony. I can't stand before the town council and wax poetic about how her green eyes light up when she solves a particularly complicated tax problem, or how she unconsciously hums under her breath when she's concentrating, or how the freckles across her nose are arranged like constellations I want to memorize. The crumpled paper joins the first in my waste bin. By 10 a.m., my office looks like a paper recycling center exploded. Discarded drafts litter my desk, the floor, the chairs intended for visitors. Each version either sounds too cold and dismissive, which will register as deception under truth enchantment, or too emotionally revealing, which will destroy any semblance of mayoral dignity I've managed to maintain. Draft 7. Attempting professional balance. The magical bond has created unexpected circumstances that require careful consideration. I value Ms. O'Malley as both a professional colleague and what? A friend? That's already a lie that magic would expose. Something more. How do I admit to something I've barely acknowledged to myself, especially when saying it aloud in front of 400 supernatural residents, will either free us or bind us permanently, depending on whether she feels the same way? My phone buzzes with a text from Vernon. Remember, emotional authenticity matters more than elegant phrasing. The magic responds to genuine feeling, not diplomatic language. I respond with 3 words that perfectly capture my current state. That's the problem. The truth is, I've spent my entire tenure as mayor learning to balance personal feelings with public duty. When Jasper's magical mishaps flood the town square with enchanted roses, I express concern without favoritism. When Cordelia's divination sessions cause temporal loops in the library, I maintain professional composure while coordinating emergency responses. I've made an art form of caring deeply about this community, while keeping enough emotional distance to lead effectively. But Moira shattered that careful distance the moment she stress-wailed in my office and looked at me with such mortification that I wanted to tell her that her voice, even in distress, was the most beautiful thing I'd heard in years. The knock on my door at 11 interrupts my 18th attempt at finding words that won't either humiliate me or doom us both. "Come in," I call, hastily shoving crumpled papers into my waste bin like a teenager hiding evidence. Moira enters looking like I feel, exhausted, anxious, and holding a folder that I suspect contains her own failed attempts at testimony preparation. Her auburn hair is slightly disheveled, escaping its usually perfect bun in ways that suggest she's been running her hands through it nervously. Her vintage glasses sit slightly askew on her nose. She's never looked more beautiful, or more terrified. "I've prepared 17 different versions," she says without preamble, adjusting her glasses with trembling fingers. None of them work. They either sound like I'm filing a municipal complaint or composing bad poetry. I can't... Her voice cracks. "How do you summarize feelings you don't entirely understand for public consumption under magical compulsion?" If I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't have a waste bin full of evidence to the contrary. I gesture at the paper casualties littering my office. "Would you like coffee? I've got a fresh pot because I needed something to do besides write terrible testimony drafts. Please." She sinks into the chair across from my desk, setting her folder down with the careful precision of someone barely holding themselves together. Vernon sent me 8 reminder messages about emotional authenticity versus diplomatic phrasing. I think he's concerned we're both going to approach this like a municipal permit application and accidentally bind ourselves permanently through bureaucratic language. I pour her coffee, cream, 1 sugar, exactly how she takes it because I've noticed these details during our late-night research sessions, and refill my own mug. "What's your current draft number 17? She opens her folder with the reluctant air of someone exposing vulnerable work to critique. Her handwriting covers the page in her characteristic neat script, but the margins are filled with increasingly frantic notes and crossouts. "Statement for Truth Enchantment Hearing," she reads aloud, her voice taking on the formal cadence she uses for client presentations. "The magical contract has created circumstances requiring official resolution. Mayor Grimm has been professional and supportive throughout this situation. I appreciate his assistance in researching legal precedents and believe we can." "That's going to register as deception," I interrupt gently. "Appreciation and professional respect aren't what you actually feel when we're working together in the archives." Her cheeks flush pink. "What I actually feel would be entirely inappropriate to announce under truth enchantment in front of the entire town." Shit. What if that's exactly what the magic requires? We stare at each other across my desk, both of us understanding the impossible position we're in. Tell the complete truth and risk humiliation, or attempt diplomatic language and risk permanent magical binding through dishonesty. "Should we practice?" she suggests, though her expression shows she finds this idea as appealing as I do. "Maybe if we get comfortable saying it to each other first." Right. Good idea. I clear my throat and attempt to channel the composed, diplomatic tone I use for town council meetings. The magical bond has revealed unexpected compatibility that The words stick in my throat like they physically refuse to emerge in such bloodless phrasing. Moira tries next, her hands gripping her coffee mug like a lifeline. Working with Thaddeus has made me realize certain feelings that she cuts off as the magical bond between us suddenly pulses, synchronizing our emotions in a feedback loop that amplifies our shared anxiety until we're both too nervous to continue. My heart races, her hands tremble, the bond hums with our combined terror, creating a supernatural resonance that makes coherent speech impossible. "This isn't working," I manage, setting down my coffee before I spill it everywhere. "No." She sets down her own mug, then immediately picks it up again like she needs something to hold. The magic responds to our emotional state. The more nervous we get, the stronger the synchronization becomes, which makes us more nervous, which strengthens the bond, creating an anxiety spiral documented in precisely 0 legal precedents, because apparently no one else has been foolish enough to get magically bound through municipal paperwork. Despite everything, she laughs, a real laugh that cuts through our shared panic. Vernon found a case from 1847 where 2 supernatural tax collectors got bound through a disputed property assessment form. They stayed married for 63 years. That's either encouraging or terrifying, depending on how you frame it. Both. Her smile fades. Thaddeus, what if I can't do this? What if I stand up there and the truth enchantment reveals feelings I can barely admit to myself, and everyone in Grimvale hears me expose every inadequate, chaotic thought I've ever had about? She stops abruptly. About? I prompt gently. She meets my eyes, and I see my own fear reflected back at me. The terror of complete vulnerability, combined with the even greater terror of missing something genuine because we're too frightened to claim it. About falling in love with someone who makes me feel extraordinary instead of defective, she whispers. Even though I'm terrified, it might just be magic making us both feel things that aren't real. Vernon's reminder echoes in my mind. Truth enchantment reveals not just spoken words, but underlying emotional authenticity. What if that's the point? I say slowly, the realization crystallizing as I speak. The magic isn't creating these feelings, it's forcing us to acknowledge them honestly, instead of hiding behind professional facades. Truth enchantment doesn't care about elegant phrasing or diplomatic language. It responds to genuine emotion beneath the words, which means we can't hide. Her voice trembles, not from the magic, not from each other, not from 400 supernatural residents who are going to witness us either declare genuine love or attempt deception that permanently binds us through dishonesty. No. I come around the desk, unable to maintain professional distance when she looks so frightened. We can't hide. She stands to meet me, and we're close enough that I can see the silver-green flecks in her eyes, the freckles dusting her nose, the way she's biting her lower lip with the same nervous energy that triggers her stress wails. I'm terrified, she admits. I know. Me too. Of what, specifically? She adjusts her glasses, her nervous tell that I've come to recognize and find unbearably endearing. Political consequences? Public humiliation? Permanent magical binding to a defective banshee whose emotions cause municipal disasters? Of losing you. The words emerge before I can stop them, raw and honest. Even if the council dissolves the contract and frees us both, my greatest fear isn't the public exposure or political fallout. It's that you'll choose dissolution even if our feelings are genuine, and I'll spend the rest of my life watching you stress wail over quarterly reports while knowing I let something extraordinary slip away because I was too frightened to risk being honest. Her breath catches. The magical bond pulses between us, but this time the sensation isn't invasive or chaotic. It feels like recognition, like confirmation of something we've both been too afraid to name. You think this is extraordinary? Her voice barely rises above a whisper. We met because I shattered your municipal composure with supernatural wailing. I've caused public magical disasters that required emergency protocols. I cry over tax forms and reorganize filing systems by color when I'm stressed. I'm fundamentally too much chaos for someone who lives for order. You create beauty from chaos, I correct, framing her face gently with my hands the way I did in the archives when we both broke down crying. You transform complicated regulations into protection for people who need advocates. You make stress wails sound like music. You see patterns in numbers that help supernatural beings navigate systems designed to confuse them. That's not defective, that's absolutely extraordinary. Tears well in her eyes. I've fallen in love with you too. Somewhere between municipal crisis management and late-night legal research. It terrifies me. Good. I rest my forehead against hers, breathing in the faint scent of her lavender shampoo and the coffee we've both been consuming like fuel. We'll be terrified together. Publicly and under truth enchantment, apparently. Jeta, through my office window, I can see the town square, where magical barriers are already being erected for tomorrow's hearing. Temporary seating appears in organized rows. Vernon directs the placement of the enchanted podium, where we'll stand while magic strips away every careful defense we've built. The entire town will witness either our honest declaration of love or our attempted deception resulting in permanent binding. My political reputation, Moira's professional dignity, and both our emotional futures hang on our willingness to be vulnerably, completely, authentically ourselves in front of everyone. It should terrify me more than any crisis I've faced as mayor. Instead, holding Moira in my office, surrounded by crumpled testimony drafts and cold coffee, I feel something that might be courage settling over my shoulders like a familiar coat. No more drafts, I decide. No diplomatic language or professionally appropriate phrasing. When we stand up there tomorrow, we tell the truth, messy and imperfect and completely honest. What if the truth isn't elegant enough, she asks. Then we'll be inelegant together. I pull back enough to see her face, this brilliant woman who stress wails over tax forms and thinks her chaos makes her defective instead of extraordinary. The magic responds to authentic feeling, not perfect phrasing, so we give it authentic feeling. She takes a shaky breath, then nods with the same determined precision she brings to solving complicated accounting problems. Complete honesty, public vulnerability, potential political disaster, and possibly something worth more than any carefully constructed mayoral image. Possibly? Well, I kiss her, soft and gentle and absolutely honest, in my paper-strewn office while Grimvale prepares for the most public romantic declaration in the town's supernatural history. Definitely, I amend when we break apart. Definitely worth it. Fanantel her large. Tomorrow we'll stand before the community I've led for 5 years and admit feelings I've barely acknowledged to myself. We'll risk everything on the possibility that magic and honesty and genuine connection matter more than political safety or professional dignity. Tonight, I hold the woman who makes me feel protected instead of just respected, and prepare to choose love over reputation. It's the most terrifying and exhilarating decision I've ever made, and for the first time in 5 years of careful mayoral composure, I'm ready to risk everything on something that might be extraordinary.
Chapter 9. Moira. The town square shouldn't look this beautiful for what amounts to supernatural legal proceedings. But Grimvale has transformed the cobblestone center into something between a courtroom and a theater, with temporary crystalline barriers creating a formal hearing space that catches the afternoon light and scatters rainbows across the assembled crowd. Everyone's here. First, Pella, positioned near the front with what appears to be an entire portable bakery's worth of stress management supplies. She clutches a tray of what I recognize as her anxiety-calming lavender scones, though the way they're gently glowing suggests her emotional magic has gotten involved in the baking process. Again. Second, Eric standing beside her like a stone sentinel, his gargoyle nature lending him a protective stillness that probably reassures Pella, but makes me want to reorganize something alphabetically just to calm my nerves. Third, Cordelia, observing from beneath an ancient oak tree, her violet eyes carrying a knowing expression that suggests she's witnessed this exact scenario approximately 17 times before, and finds our particular version moderately entertaining. Fourth, through approximately 200, the entire supernatural community of Grimvale, arranged in loose semicircles around the crystalline barriers, their faces expressing various combinations of support, curiosity, and the kind of gentle investment that comes from living in a town where everyone knows your business and genuinely cares about your happiness. I adjust my glasses, count my bobby pins. 17 as always. My professional composure wrapped in precisely controlled auburn hair and sensible charcoal business attire that now feels like armor against the overwhelming attention. This is fine. Public testimony under magical truth enforcement is absolutely fine. I've prepared 17 different statements covering every possible emotional contingency. I'm organized. I'm ready. I'm going to stress wail in front of literally everyone I know. The air shimmers above the central podium, and 3 figures materialize like morning mist, gaining sudden substance. The supernatural legal counsel manifests as beings of pure magical energy, barely contained in humanoid shapes. One silver and moonlit, one gold as summer afternoon, one shadowed like twilight settling over mountains. Their voices carry weight when they speak in unison, each word resonating through the square like bells struck in distant cathedrals. We gather to address the petition of Moira O'Malley and Thaddeus Grimm regarding the dissolution of an artificially imposed fated mate contract created through unsanctioned magical interference. My skin prickles as their truth enchantment settles over the hearing space. It feels like gossamer silk brushing against every nerve ending, delicate but inescapable, designed to verify emotional authenticity with the precision I usually apply to tax calculations. No lies, no diplomatic phrasing, just raw, verified truth broadcast to approximately 200 witnesses who will absolutely discuss this at every community gathering for the next decade. My carefully constructed professional persona is about to dissolve like sugar in tea. Moira O'Malley. The silver council member gestures toward the witness circle, a raised platform within the crystalline barriers, where truth enchantment glows strongest. Please approach and provide testimony regarding the nature of your feelings and the authenticity of your supernatural bond. Right. Testimony. I have this prepared. I smooth my skirt, charcoal wool, pressed this morning with the kind of precision that makes fabric behave, and approach the witness circle on legs that feel significantly less stable than tax law generally requires. 17 prepared statements. Color-coded emotional categories. Backup responses for unexpected questions. All of it dissolves into terrified blankness the moment I step inside the circle and face the impossible task of publicly declaring feelings I've barely admitted to myself. The truth enchantment tightens around me like a gentle vice. Not painful, just insistent, making silence feel like physical resistance while honest words want to pour out like water from a cracked dam. I open my mouth, close it, open it again. Approximately 200 faces watch with supportive but overwhelming attention. Pella clutches her glowing scones. Erix nods encouragingly. Cordelia smiles like she already knows exactly what I'm going to say. My voice cracks. The enchantment pulses, encouraging honesty. I came to Grimvale 5 years ago because my family, traditional Irish banshees who've been wailing at deaths for centuries, considered me defective. Wrong. A shame to our heritage because I stress wail instead of sensing mortal ends. The words taste like confession, like finally admitting something I've buried beneath professional competence and perfectly pressed business attire. I built a life here based on control. Systematic stress management. 17 bobby pins holding my hair in perfect order, because if I could just maintain enough structure, maybe I wouldn't be the disaster my family thinks I am. My hands shake. I clench them together. I thought if I stayed quiet enough, organized enough, professionally competent enough, I could prove I wasn't fundamentally too much chaos for anyone to love. The truth enchantment hums approval of my honesty, which somehow makes it easier to continue. Then I met Thaddeus Grimm while shattering his municipal composure with supernatural wailing that required official noise complaint documentation. A watery laugh escapes. I've caused public magical disasters. I cry over tax forms. I reorganize filing systems by color when stressed. Everything about me should horrify someone who lives for order and diplomatic precision. I find his eyes in the crowd, steady brown gaze behind wire-rimmed glasses, watching me with the same patient attention he brought to late-night legal research in the archives. But somehow, the truth enchantment pulls the confession from somewhere deep in my chest, where I've been hiding it beneath anxiety protocols and professional distance. Somehow I've fallen in love with a man who makes me feel like the right kind of everything. who provides noise-canceling headphones during magical meltdowns, who researches supernatural contract law at midnight because he wants to protect my choices, who looks at my chaotic Banshee nature and sees beauty instead of defect. The words trigger something I've never experienced before. Not my usual stress wail, but something pure and musical, rising from the same supernatural source. My voice transforms, soaring into an aria that carries every emotion I lack adequate words for. The sound pours from me like years of suppressed feeling finally finding proper expression. My Banshee heritage singing not of death or disaster, but of longing so deep it resonates in my bones. Fear of inadequacy harmonizing with hope for genuine connection. Love too terrifying to name aloud, woven through melodies that make the crystalline barriers ring in sympathetic vibration. I'm not controlling it. Can't control it. The music flows through me the way stress wails normally do, but instead of chaos, this feels like purpose. My aria weaves through the square, carrying themes of displacement and belonging, of building new family from chosen community, of finding someone who sees past your carefully constructed armor to the messy, imperfect soul underneath, and loves you anyway. Several residents wipe their eyes. Pella scones are now crying actual tears of lavender-scented light. Even the supernatural legal counsel appears moved, their shimmering forms flickering in response to the emotional authenticity of my supernatural confession. The song concludes on a note of vulnerable hope, asking without words if this terrifying, beautiful thing between us could possibly be real. Silence settles over the square like snowfall. The Golden Council member speaks first, their voice gentler than before. Authentic, emotional testimony verified. The depth of feeling expressed suggests genuine attachment regardless of initial magical compulsion. Agreed, adds the Silver member. We find sufficient evidence to proceed with contract dissolution as requested. Z. They raise their hands in unison, and magical energy begins gathering around the enchanted inkwell that started this entire situation. The dissolution process manifests as silver light threading through the bond between us, preparing to sever the artificial connection and return us both to separate, unencumbered lives. This is what we asked for. Freedom from magical compulsion, the ability to choose our own paths without supernatural interference. So why does watching that silver light feel like preparing for amputation? Wait. Thaddeus's voice cuts through the magical proceedings with quiet authority. His mayoral composure remains perfectly intact despite what must be tremendous personal stakes as he steps forward to address both the council and me directly. The dissolution magic pauses mid-process, silver threads hanging suspended in afternoon sunlight. The truth enchantment settles over him the moment he enters the witness circle beside me. I watch him take a steadying breath, the same centering technique he uses before difficult municipal meetings, then meet my eyes with devastating honesty. The contract may have been artificial, he begins, abandoning every trace of diplomatic language I've heard him employ during 5 years of professional interaction. But what I feel for Moira isn't. What started as magical compulsion became genuine connection, somewhere between crisis management and late-night legal research, between her stress wailing over quarterly reports and my attempts to protect her reputation during public magical disasters. His voice carries through the square without raising in volume, that same measured cadence that makes council meetings feel civilized, even during supernatural chaos. But now the words themselves are anything but measured. I fell in love with her competence and her chaos, with the way she transforms complicated regulations into protection for vulnerable beings. With her stress management protocols and her complete inability to actually manage stress without creating beautiful disasters. He reaches for my hand. I let him take it. With the woman who makes me feel protected instead of just respected. Who sees past my mayoral persona to the terrified man underneath, who worries constantly about being adequate for such an extraordinary community. The truth enchantment glows brighter, verifying every word. Moira, I'm not asking to stay magically bound. His thumb brushes across my knuckles with devastating gentleness. I'm asking you to choose me freely. To let the council dissolve this artificial contract so we can build something real, something chosen, something that exists because we both decided it was worth the risk, not because magical ink decided for us. The dissolution magic pauses completely as the council recognizes the unprecedented nature of his request. The shadowed member leans forward with interest. You wish to dissolve the bond and then pursue relationship naturally.
Yes.
Simple. Certain. Terrifying in its honesty.
The entire square holds its breath.
I stare at him in shocked wonder, my organized mind struggling to process what he's offering. Not freedom from connection, freedom to choose connection. The dissolution I requested not as an ending, but as a beginning, where anything that exists between us afterward would be genuinely ours instead of magically imposed. He's risking everything. His political reputation, the safety of magical certainty, the protection of a bond that guaranteed we'd stay together regardless of fear or doubt, offering instead the uncertain path of authentic love built on daily choice and vulnerable honesty. Looking into his steady brown eyes while surrounded by my chosen community's overwhelming support, I feel my heart make the decision before my mind catches up to the implications. Whatever brought us together, chaotic ink magic and municipal noise complaints, what exists between us now feels real enough to risk everything for.
Dissolve it.
I whisper, then stronger. Dissolve the contract.
Chapter 10. Thaddeus. Dissolve it, Moira whispers, then stronger. Dissolve the contract. Before she can say more, before I can process the weight of what we're both choosing, the Golden Council member raises a shimmering hand. Their expression shifts from formal neutrality to something that looks remarkably like wonder. The dissolution is unnecessary. My heart stutters. Beside me, Moira goes very still. Your contract has already transformed, the council member continues, their voice carrying that peculiar resonance that makes truth sound like music. What began as artificial binding has become genuine fated make bond. I stare at them in stunned comprehension, my mind racing through municipal contract law and supernatural legal precedent. Vernon's research mentioned bond evolution in theoretical terms, historical footnotes about contracts that transcended their original parameters through extraordinary circumstances. I'd thought those were romantic legends preserved in dusty archives, not actual legal phenomena that could happen to a harried mayor and a stress-wailing accountant in the middle of Grimvale's town square. The Silver Council member speaks next, their tone gentler than any truth enchantment testimony deserves. True magical contracts evolve when artificial bonds are nurtured by real love, authentic vulnerability, and mutual choice. They gesture between us with elegant precision. Precisely what you have developed through your shared crisis and growing trust. Real love. Authentic vulnerability. Mutual choice. Every late-night conversation in the archives. Every moment of shared laughter over absurd magical complications. Every time Moira adjusted her glasses while explaining complex supernatural tax implications with endearing earnestness. Every time she saw past my mayoral composure to the terrified man underneath and offered understanding instead of judgment. All of it real, all of it ours. The legal process was merely confirmation, the third council member adds with something approaching warmth threading through their formal bearing, of what your hearts had already chosen. The Amorate's interference created opportunity, but you created the love. The revelation hits me like sunrise after endless night, not trapped by magical compulsion, but blessed by genuine spiritual connection that happened to be recognized and formalized through supernatural law. The difference between prison and sanctuary, between obligation and gift. The contract didn't force us together. It witnessed what we were already becoming. Around us, Grimvale erupts in celebration. Pella's delighted cheer rises above the crowd as magical confetti begins showering the square from nowhere, pink and gold sparkles that smell like fresh pastries and happiness. Through the glittering cascade, I catch Eric's offering his rare smile of approval, the kind I've only seen him give Pella when she does something particularly brave or foolish or both. Cordelia stands near the fountain with her hands clasped and violet eyes twinkling with the satisfaction of someone whose cryptic hints have finally been understood. Of course she knew. She probably knew before we did, watching us fumble toward this truth through bureaucratic panic and stress-wailing disasters. I turn to Moira, my heart so full it threatens to overflow into poetry that would make the enchanted inkwell look restrained. She's staring at me with emerald eyes that shine with tears and wonder, her hair escaping its meticulous bun in auburn curls that catch the afternoon light. Her glasses have slipped down her nose. There's a streak of what looks like truth enchantment residue on her sleeve. She's never looked more beautiful or more perfectly herself. Organized chaos and brilliant competence wrapped in a package that makes my chest ache with tenderness. "We're real," she breathes, her voice carrying that musical quality that emerges when she's too emotional to maintain control. "This is real." "We're real," I confirm, reaching for her with hands that tremble slightly from relief and joy and overwhelming gratitude. She meets me halfway with tears of happiness streaming down her face, and when our lips finally touch, everything else, the celebrating crowd, the glowing council, even my mayoral responsibilities, fades into beautiful insignificance. The kiss carries all the passion we've been afraid to acknowledge, desperate relief that we're not trapped in magical compulsion, overwhelming love that's been growing since our first honest conversation in the archives, the intoxicating freedom of knowing every feeling is completely real, chosen rather than imposed, ours rather than the Amorette's chaotic matchmaking. Moira makes a small sound against my mouth, half laugh, half sob, and I pull her closer, one hand cradling her face while the other wraps around her waist to anchor us both in this perfect, impossible moment. Our transformed bond manifests as golden light that surrounds us both. It's nothing like the pink chaos of Amorette influence or the silver severity of truth enchantment. This warmth feels like coming home after years of wandering, like finding the answer to a question I didn't know I was asking. Moira's Banshee voice rises without warning, but instead of the distressed wailing that's caused property damage and public chaos, it harmonizes with some deep music of the universe that I've never heard before. The sound creates a symphony that speaks of love transcending rules, regulations, and magical interference, of authentic connection strong enough to transform artificial bonds into genuine blessing. The music flows through the square like visible light, gold notes dancing with her natural silver tones to create something entirely new, something uniquely ours. All around us, the chaotic pink energy of Amorette influence fades like dissipating mist. I feel it withdrawing, not defeated but satisfied, as though the ancient love magic recognizes its work here is complete. What remains is the warm gold of authentic connection and the joyful music of a community, celebrating love that fought its way from artificial beginnings to genuine truth. The enchanted inkwell catches my attention even through the kiss, still glowing on its ceremonial pedestal. As I watch, it begins rewriting our contract one final time. Legal jargon transforms into flowing poetry that reads like both binding agreement and love letter. Words about partnership and mutual support scroll across glowing parchment that wasn't there moments ago, promising chosen devotion rather than magical obligation. I break the kiss just enough to whisper against Moira's lips, "Look." She turns her head without pulling away from my embrace, and together we watch our contract rewrite itself into something beautiful. Let it be known that Moira O'Malley and Thaddeus Grimm, having met through chaos both magical and administrative, choose this day and every day forward to build love on foundation of respect, to nurture connection through honest communication, and to support each other through crisis, both supernatural and mundane. This bond, begun through Amorade's interference, transformed through authentic vulnerability, and blessed by genuine mutual choice, stands as testament that love finds a way, sometimes through proper channels, sometimes through absolute bureaucratic disaster, but always through the courage to choose connection over safety. Moira's musical laughter rings like wedding bells across our enchanted town. She turns back to me with her entire face glowing with joy, and I kiss her again because I can, because she's real and we're real, and this impossible gift is ours. The golden light spreads beyond us to encompass the entire celebrating square. It touches Pella's magical confetti and makes it shimmer brighter. It warms Eric's ancient stone skin until he looks younger than I've ever seen him. It catches Cordelia's silver hair and makes her violet eyes sparkle with reflected happiness. The community's celebration swirls around us. Cheers and music and the sound of genuine joy from people who've watched us stumble toward this truth through weeks of magical chaos. But I barely notice the noise. My entire awareness has narrowed to the woman in my arms, and the profound realization settling deep in my chest. I've found something I never dared hope for. Not just love, though the love is overwhelming in its intensity and authenticity, but a love that enhances rather than diminishes my ability to serve this community. A partner who makes me stronger rather than weaker. Someone who sees my fears about inadequacy and offers compassion instead of judgment. Who transforms my isolation into connection and my duty into shared purpose. Moira understands the weight of responsibility because she carries her own burden, the stress of managing supernatural finances while wrestling with abilities that make her feel defective to her own family. She knows what it means to build a life around service while fearing you're never quite enough. Together, we're more than the sum of our separate anxieties. Our kiss deepens as this truth settles into certainty. Her hands grip my shirt like I'm the only solid thing in a spinning world, and I hold her with the same desperate tenderness, trying to communicate without words how much she means to me. The golden light pulses with warmth, responding to the depth of our connection. Around us the celebration continues, but for this suspended moment, we exist in a bubble of perfect happiness where nothing matters except the reality of choosing each other. When we finally break apart, breathless and grinning like idiots, I rest my forehead against hers while the community's celebration swirls around us in a joyful blur of magical confetti and enthusiastic cheering. I choose you, I whisper against her lips, my voice carrying all the weight of genuine promise. Every day from now on, magical contract or not, crisis or calm, through stress-wailing disasters and municipal emergencies and whatever chaos comes next. The golden light pulses again with warmth that feels like blessing. Moira's emerald eyes shine with tears and laughter and overwhelming love as she reaches up to cup my face with gentle hands. Even when my filing system reorganizes itself by romantic compatibility instead of proper alphabetical order. Especially then, I smile against her palm. Though we might want to establish some protocols for preventing municipal documents from transforming into poetry during official meetings. Her musical laughter rings out again, and somewhere in the celebrating crowd, Pella cheers louder. The enchanted inkwell glows brighter, as though pleased with our ability to maintain practical considerations, even in the middle of magical romance. Which is exactly who we are. Chaos and order, passion and planning, love that's both wildly romantic and comfortingly grounded in the everyday reality of building a life together. I kiss her again, because I can, because she's mine and I'm hers, and the contract glowing with golden light is both witness and celebration of a love that transformed impossible circumstances into genuine blessing. Around us, Grimvale celebrates with the enthusiastic chaos that defines our magical community. But wrapped in Moira's arms with golden light warming us both, and our transformed bond humming with authentic connection, I'm finally, completely home.
Chapter 11.
Moira. The morning sun streams through my office windows. Windows that no longer rattle ominously with every stress-induced tremor of my voice. Instead, I open them wide to let the autumn air carry my vocal warm-ups across Grimvale's downtown square. Me, me. Me, me, me. The scale flows smoothly up and down my range, each note resonating with intentional control rather than anxious suppression. My hair lifts slightly in an ethereal breeze that smells of copper and old magic, but now I recognize this as my Banshee nature expressing itself naturally, rather than chaotically. This is protocol number 18, added to my morning routine 2 weeks after the public hearing. Vocal warm-ups from 7:45 to 8 a.m. Breath control exercises that create melodic patterns instead of panicked gasps. Humming that flows through musical scales while I organize my day's client files. My grandmother's silver watch ticks quietly on my wrist as I progress through the rest of my protocols. 17 carefully structured steps that bring order to my morning, plus this new addition that brings harmony to my supernatural abilities. Coffee prepared exactly right, Protocol 3. Inbox organized by urgency, Protocol 7. 17 bobby pins securing my auburn hair in its customary bun, Protocol 12. The difference is that now these rituals feel like choices rather than desperate control mechanisms. I'm not suppressing my Banshee nature anymore. I'm channeling it, alongside my professional competence, discovering that the two can actually enhance each other, rather than existing in constant conflict. My office looks exactly the same as it did before the magical contract chaos. Meticulously organized desk, color-coded folders arranged with perfect precision, backup pens stationed at strategic intervals. But the energy feels completely different. Lighter, more spacious, as though accepting my chaotic supernatural nature has somehow created more room for order, rather than less. The door chimes at exactly 9 a.m., Mrs. Weatherby's scheduled appointment time. She bustles in with her usual flurry of overwhelmed energy, arms loaded with 3 years' worth of receipts in various states of supernatural disorganization. "I'm so sorry, dear," she says, dumping the entire mess onto my client table with apologetic distress. "I know you asked me to keep better records, but the enchanted cash register keeps reorganizing everything by emotional significance instead of date. And now my entire filing system thinks my most important business expense is the coffee I bought the morning my granddaughter visited. And the supernatural tax forms are threatening to audit me if I can't prove my familiar's kibble counts as a business deduction." "Mrs. Weatherby." My voice emerges gentle and musical, carrying an undertone of harmony that I've learned to weave through my professional consultations. "Take a breath. We'll sort this out together." The soft humming rises naturally from my chest as I settle across from her, spreading the chaotic receipts across the table with careful hands. The melody flows without conscious thought, something between a lullaby and a folk song, touched with the ancient resonance that marks my Banshee heritage. Mrs. Weatherby's anxious fidgeting begins to slow. Her breathing deepens, and the scattered receipts start responding to the musical magic threading through the air, organizing themselves into patterns that suddenly make perfect sense. "There." I continue humming while sorting, my hands moving in rhythm with the melody. "See how your morning coffee purchases align with your business consultations?" The emotional significance actually creates a logical pattern when you understand the underlying connection. The receipts practically sing their own stories as I work through them. Purchases organizing themselves by genuine business purpose rather than arbitrary dates. Magical expenses categorizing themselves according to practical use. 3 years of financial chaos transforming into beautifully clear documentation. "How do you do that?" Mrs. Weatherby watches with wonder as I create order from her disaster, tears of relief already forming in her kind eyes. "Make it all make sense, like this? The same way you help your clients find their familiars." I offer her a gentle smile while continuing to hum. "By listening to what's actually there, rather than what should be there according to conventional rules." The consultation takes 47 minutes, considerably less time than her previous appointments, when I'd spent hours fighting her enchanted bookkeeping into submission through sheer analytical determination. Now the musical magic flows through the process naturally, helping both of us understand the underlying patterns that make supernatural finances work differently than standard accounting. When Mrs. Weatherby leaves with perfectly organized tax documents and a mysteriously improved mood, I make a note in my client file. Musical consultation approach successful. Client stress levels reduced by approximately 73%. Recommend similar methodology for other emotion-based business expense cases. The morning progresses through 3 more consultations, each one benefiting from the gentle melodies I've learned to weave through financial analysis. Jasper materializes on my filing cabinet to observe with feline approval, his golden eyes tracking the way receipts respond to my humming by organizing themselves into logical categories. "You've grown into your power nicely," he notes telepathically, tail swishing with satisfaction. "Though I could have told you months ago that fighting your nature was considerably less efficient than accepting it." "You could have," I agree while reviewing a supernatural bakery's quarterly projections. "But I wouldn't have believed you." Fair point. Humans generally insist on learning through suffering, rather than sensible advice from obviously superior beings. His smug satisfaction makes me smile. Even Jasper's pointed observations feel affectionate rather than critical these days, as though accepting my chaotic nature has made space for accepting everyone else's personalities exactly as they are too. My stress management protocols have evolved alongside my vocal warm-ups. Protocol 4 now includes melodic breathing exercises instead of silent counts. Protocol 9 incorporates humming while I organize files, each folder finding its place according to musical scales that somehow make more sense than pure alphabetical order. Protocol 15 involves strategic singing that keeps my supernatural abilities flowing smoothly, rather than building to explosive stress wails. The numbered structure still provides comfort. My anxious mind still craves the security of established routines. But now these protocols serve my power, rather than suppressing it, creating harmony instead of tension. At 2 p.m., my office door opens to admit Thaddeus, carrying 2 cups of coffee and the satisfied expression of a man whose professional and personal lives have achieved perfect synchronization. My heart does that ridiculous fluttering thing it's been doing since the public hearing. Warmth spreading through my chest with embarrassing predictability. "Weekly municipal budget meeting," he announces, settling into the chair beside my desk with comfortable familiarity. I brought coffee and reasonably optimistic projections for the new Supernatural Community Center. Our workspace has expanded naturally to accommodate both his mayoral documents and my accounting files. His leather messenger bag now lives permanently on the corner of my desk. My backup pens have multiplied to include his preferred brands. The organizational system we've developed together combines my color-coded precision with his diplomatic categorization, creating something more efficient than either of us managed separately. Let me see the projections. I accept the coffee while pulling up the relevant financial databases, our shoulders brushing as we lean together over the spreadsheets. "Did you account for the emotion-based property damage insurance I recommended?" "I did." His warm brown eyes crinkle with humor. Though I had to explain to the town council 3 separate times why magical feelings might occasionally cause municipal buildings to temporarily transform into romantic architectural flourishes. How did they take it? Cordelia laughed for 10 minutes. Jasper suggested we simply accept that Grimvale operates on different rules than conventional municipalities. Pella offered to provide emotional support pastries during future magical crises. He pauses to sip his coffee, grinning. The motion passed unanimously. Working together transforms what used to be tedious bureaucratic processes into efficient collaboration that somehow feels like play. Thaddeus's diplomatic skills smoothed the implementation of new supernatural community services, while my financial expertise identifies budget inefficiencies and innovative funding solutions. We pass documents back and forth with unconscious intimacy, our hands brushing as we review forms and make notations. What if we allocated these funds differently? I suggest, using my pen to indicate a line item in the community services budget. Move the emotional regulation workshops from discretionary spending to essential municipal services. It would qualify for supernatural tax incentives and save approximately 23% on overall costs. Brilliant. Thaddeus makes the notation immediately, then adds his own suggestion. And if we classify the new archives wing as cultural preservation rather than simple expansion, we could apply for heritage grants that would cover the enchanted climate control systems, which would free up funds for the magical mediation services you wanted to implement. I'm already adjusting the spreadsheet, numbers reorganizing themselves with musical efficiency. We could have both programs operational by spring. His expression warms with affection and professional respect in equal measure. Have I mentioned lately that you're extraordinary? Not since this morning, when I explained how supernatural depreciation schedules work. My professional composure cracks into a smile. But I won't object to hearing it again. The municipal archives have become our unofficial secondary office over the past weeks. Vernon keeps our favorite research table permanently reserved, and we've developed a comfortable routine of bringing lunch and spending quiet hours researching innovative solutions for Grimvale's unique supernatural needs. Tax incentives for magical businesses that account for emotion-based fluctuations in revenue. Insurance policies that cover property damage caused by romantic manifestations or stress-induced supernatural reactions. Zoning regulations that acknowledge how fated mate bonds might affect residential property values and neighborhood dynamics. The work is endlessly fascinating, discovering that proper bureaucratic structure can actually enhance magical community life rather than restricting it. That thoughtful planning creates space for supernatural chaos rather than trying to eliminate it. That love and efficiency aren't opposing forces, but complementary aspects of building a life worth living. My office door chimes at 3:30 p.m. Finley arrives carrying takeout containers and the fondly exasperated expression of someone whose business partner has fallen hopelessly in love. I brought lunch, they announce, setting containers on my client table with deliberate care. Which I notice neither of you remembered to eat because you were too busy making budget proposals into some kind of romantic collaboration. Thaddeus and I exchange guilty glances. We had gotten somewhat absorbed in the community center projections. We were working, I protest, while Finley distributes containers with efficient movements. Professional municipal accounting that happens to involve both the mayor and the town's supernatural financial consultant. Finley settles into the third chair, gesturing at the way our hands rest near each other on my desk. Our coffee mugs stationed side by side. Our entire workspace organized with unconscious intimacy. And does professional municipal accounting usually involve that much casual touching and those looks? What looks? But my cheeks warm with telltale heat. The looks that say you two have turned municipal budgeting into foreplay. Finley's hazel eyes sparkle with affectionate teasing behind their trendy rectangular glasses. I'm not complaining. Your happiness is genuinely delightful, and the accounting business has never been more successful. I'm just pointing out that I've become the third wheel in what was supposed to be a business partnership. Thaddeus coughs diplomatically, but I catch the smile he's trying to hide. You're not a third wheel, I assure Finley while opening my takeout container. You're my business partner and my best friend, and the person who kept this practice running during 2 weeks of magical contract chaos. True. They spear a bite of noodles with satisfied precision. I did handle 17 client consultations, 3 emergency supernatural audits, and Mrs. Weatherby's familiar registration paperwork, while you were busy having romantic revelations in the municipal archives. The reminder makes me reach across to squeeze their hand with genuine gratitude. I couldn't do any of this without you. The business, the balance, the ability to actually have a personal life alongside our professional success. It only works because you're here, making it possible. Finley's expression softens. I know. And I'm genuinely happy for you, Moira. Watching you accept your Banshee abilities and fall in love and build a life that includes both chaos and order has been... They pause, emotion thickening their voice. It's been beautiful. Exactly what I hoped for when we became partners 3 years ago. The 3 of us eat together in comfortable silence, sharing space and food and the easy affection of people who've built genuine friendship alongside professional collaboration. Thaddeus fits naturally into the dynamic rather than disrupting it, his quiet humor complementing Finley's pointed observations, his municipal concerns aligning with our accounting focus, his presence somehow making everything feel more complete rather than crowded. Looking around my office, I'm struck by how thoroughly my life has transformed. Photos from the magical hearing hang beside my accounting certifications. Images of Thaddeus and me, surrounded by golden light and community celebration. Physical proof that love found me, despite my desperate attempts at perfect control. His coffee mug lives permanently beside my 17-pen desk organizer, a small domestic detail that makes my heart clench with unexpected tenderness. Finley's collection of accounting puns decorates my filing cabinets, each terrible joke a reminder that I'm not alone anymore. The realization settles through me with startling clarity. Accepting help has transformed me from an isolated perfectionist into someone whose life actually works better with other people in it. My carefully controlled independence has evolved into chosen interdependence. Sharing responsibilities with Finley means our business thrives rather than merely surviving. Sharing vulnerabilities with Thaddeus means my supernatural abilities enhance my professional life rather than threatening it. Sharing space with the entire Grimvale community means I have support systems and chosen family and belonging instead of lonely competence. I'm still meticulously organized, still favor color-coded systems and numbered protocols, and 17 bobby pins securing my hair in perfect, professional buns. Still experience anxiety about potential disasters and instinctively plan for worst-case scenarios. But now these traits exist alongside other qualities I'm learning to value. Vulnerability that creates intimacy. Chaos that generates beauty. Imperfection that makes space for authentic connection. Thank you, I say quietly, the words encompassing both Finley and Thaddeus and everything they represent in my transformed life. For being patient with my disasters. For celebrating my weird abilities. For making me believe that I could be both professionally competent and supernaturally chaotic and still be enough. Finley raises their coffee cup in a salute. Always. Though I reserve the right to continue teasing you about the romantic budget meetings. Thaddeus's hand finds mine on the desk, his fingers intertwining with casual intimacy that still makes my breath catch. We prefer to call them efficient collaborative governance with emotional benefits. My laughter rings musical and free, touched with the harmonious magic that's become as natural as breathing. Outside my office windows, Grimvale continues its gentle autumn afternoon, magical and mundane, chaotic and ordered, perfectly imperfect in all the ways that make it home. And here, in this space I've built, through equal parts determination and acceptance, surrounded by people who love me exactly as I am, I feel the deep contentment of someone who's finally found her authentic place in both her work and her chosen family. The filing cabinets hum softly with residual magical warmth. The enchanted inkwell glows gentle approval from its place of honor on my desk. And my heart, no longer bound by artificial contracts or desperate control, sings with the beautiful chaos of being completely, perfectly myself.
Chapter 12. Thaddeus. Standing in our home office doorway, I take a moment to appreciate what we've built together over the past year. The space has transformed from my solitary workspace into something that represents both of us. Moira's meticulously organized accounting files, sharing shelves with my municipal documents, her color-coded folders nested among my policy manuals, our professional lives blending in ways that somehow make both of us more effective at our respective work. The filing system alone would make any organizational expert weep with joy. Moira's influence appears in the precise labeling and cross-referencing that makes finding any document instantaneous. My contribution shows in the diplomatic categorization that groups related materials by community benefit rather than strict alphabetical order. Together, we've created a hybrid system that works better than either of us managed alone. Afternoon sunlight streams through windows that once vibrated ominously with Moira's stress wailing, but now catch the harmonious notes of her evolved musical magic, turning our shared workspace into something almost sacred. The air shimmers faintly with acoustic patterns that help organize our joint municipal projects, each gentle hum creating visual ripples that guide papers into their proper places and remind us which tasks require immediate attention. She's seated at what used to be my desk but has become our collaborative workspace, her auburn hair caught up in its customary bun with those 17 bobby pins that still make me smile. Today she hums while reviewing a complicated tax situation for one of Grimvale's more eccentric supernatural residents, the soft melody creating golden threads of sound that weave through the air and somehow make the numbers arrange themselves more sensibly on the page. Watching her work never gets old. The concentration on her face, the occasional pause when her musical magic suggests a solution she hadn't considered, the satisfied nod when everything balances perfectly, these small moments of professional competence mixed with supernatural grace fill me with a contentment I never imagined possible during my solitary years managing Grimvale alone. The Weatherby case is actually rather elegant once you understand their familiar's tax status, she says, without looking up, somehow aware of my presence through the bond that's grown deeper and more intuitive with every passing month. Mrs. Weatherby has been overpaying for 17 years because previous accountants didn't understand the dependent familiar exemption applies retroactively if filed with proper documentation. Her voice carries that musical quality that means she's genuinely pleased by the discovery, each word touching harmonics that make the filing cabinets hum in sympathetic resonance. The sound fills our home with purposeful magic that enhances rather than disrupts our carefully balanced life together. I cross to her side, leaning down to press a kiss to the top of her head. You're going to make Mrs. Weatherby cry with joy. Again. I hope you've prepared for another wave of gratitude casseroles. Finley has promised to help me navigate the social obligations. She tilts her head back to smile at me, green eyes bright behind her tortoiseshell glasses. Though I maintain that saving someone's 17 years of unnecessary tax burden deserves at least 3 casseroles and possibly a pie. The morning has been productive in ways that still surprise me. We've spent hours drafting new municipal protocols, specifically designed to help couples affected by the Amorette's chaotic matchmaking, transforming our own bureaucratic disaster into practical guidance that will hopefully prevent future supernatural romantic emergencies from causing quite as much municipal mayhem. I retrieve the latest version of our policy document from the printer, scanning the title with fond amusement. Emergency Magical Romance Response Procedures, I read aloud, appreciating how we've managed to make even accidental supernatural bonding sound professionally manageable. Including crisis management protocols, community support coordination frameworks, and comprehensive legal precedent research for unexpected magical entanglements. Moira's musical laughter fills the room, each note carrying warmth that makes the very air feel more welcoming. Only we would respond to falling in love through magical chaos by creating systematic documentation for other couples experiencing similar situations. It's practical, I defend, though I'm grinning. The next accountant who accidentally binds themselves to a mayor through enchanted office supplies will thank us for establishing clear procedures. The specificity of that scenario suggests you're still somewhat traumatized by our particular circumstances. I prefer to think of it as thorough crisis preparation, informed by direct experience. She stands, stretching gracefully before moving to examine the protocol manual I've been finalizing. Her fingers trace the carefully organized sections, everything from initial magical incident assessment through community notification procedures, legal research requirements, and emotional support resources. We've included templates for emergency petitions, guidelines for supernatural legal counsel testimony, and even recommendations for which Grimvale residents make the best crisis counselors based on their specific magical expertise. The manual represents everything we've learned about managing magical chaos through systematic planning and community support. Each section builds on our actual experience, offering a roadmap for other couples who might find themselves navigating the complex intersection of supernatural destiny and municipal regulations. We should add a section about maintaining professional credibility during public magical manifestations, Moira suggests, her accounting mind identifying gaps in our documentation. I would have appreciated guidance about how to conduct client meetings when your filing cabinets are reorganizing themselves by romantic compatibility. Noted. I pull her closer, appreciating how naturally she fits against my side now. Perhaps under the broader category of workplace adaptations for emotion-based magical interference. Perfect. That maintains professional terminology while acknowledging the utter chaos of falling in love, while your office furniture develops opinions about your relationship. A familiar weight settles on the windowsill, drawing our attention to Jasper's arrival. The plump orange tabby regards us with his customary judgmental expression, green eyes assessing our filing system, and domestic partnership with the critical eye of a familiar who's appointed himself relationship advisor to all of Grimvale. Your organizational structure has improved considerably since Moira moved in. His telepathic voice carries grudging approval directly into my mind, a privilege he grants only to those he's decided deserve inclusion in his inner circle. Though I maintain that the municipal documents should occupy the south wall for optimal feng shui. Thank you for the consultation, Jasper, I say with genuine fondness. The cat has become a regular fixture in our home office, offering commentary that manages to be both sarcastic and genuinely helpful about everything from filing protocols to relationship dynamics. You're welcome. He begins grooming his white paw with elaborate nonchalance. Someone must ensure this household maintains appropriate standards. Moira tends toward excessive organization when left unsupervised, and you have an unfortunate habit of prioritizing municipal concerns over proper breaks for affection and snacks. Moira laughs, moving to scratch behind his ears. He's not wrong about either assessment. Obviously. I'm never wrong. Jasper leans into her touch with a purr that vibrates through the room, though I'll admit your partnership has proven more harmonious than I initially anticipated when you bound yourselves through bureaucratic incompetence. High praise from the town's most discerning familiar, I observe. Indeed, his tail swishes with satisfaction. You adequately deserve Moira's affection, which is the highest compliment I bestow. Continue meeting my standards, and I may consider allowing you permanent residence in what was previously Moira's exclusively organized living space. I'll endeavor to maintain your approval. See that you do. With feline superiority, Jasper settles into his favorite sunny spot, apparently satisfied that his supervisory duties are complete for the moment. My attention returns to the framed document hanging on our wall, the rewritten magical contract that started everything. The Supernatural Legal Council preserved it as both legal documentation and historical record, but we chose to display it as a daily reminder of how our relationship began. The flowing script transforms from bureaucratic legal language into poetry mid-page, marking the exact moment when artificial magical binding evolved into authentic, fated mate bond. Reading it never fails to move me, the formal whereas clauses giving way to verses about trust and vulnerability, the legal precedents transitioning into promises about choosing each other freely. It represents bureaucratic disaster transformed into something beautiful through honest choice and authentic connection. Every morning I see it and remember that love can arrive through the most unlikely circumstances, that chaos can become harmony when met with patience and genuine care. Evening settles over Grimvale, painting our shared workspace in amber light that catches on Moira's hair and turns her humming into visible golden threads weaving through the air. Our perfectly organized files occasionally hum in sympathetic resonance with her musical magic, creating ambient harmonies that make even routine paperwork feel purposeful and meaningful. I marvel at how completely our lives have integrated without either of us losing individual strengths or professional identities. Moira remains brilliant and meticulous, her accounting work enhanced by supernatural abilities she's learned to wield with intention rather than fear. I continue managing Grimvale's complex needs, my diplomatic skills strengthened by partnership with someone who understands both magical chaos and bureaucratic necessity. Together, we're exponentially more effective than we were alone. Her financial expertise helps me create more sustainable municipal programs. My community connections bring her clients who appreciate her unique approach to supernatural accounting. Our combined organizational systems make both our professional lives more efficient and enjoyable. But beyond professional success, we've built something even more valuable, a home filled with purposeful magic and genuine intimacy, where chaos and order coexist in beautiful balance. Moira looks up from her work with that smile that still makes my heart skip beats, even after a year of sharing space and dreams and the everyday magic of building life together. Her green eyes hold warmth and mischief, that particular combination that means she's thinking about something other than quarterly tax reports. "The Weatherby case can wait until tomorrow," she says softly, standing and moving toward me with deliberate grace. "Tonight is our anniversary. We should celebrate appropriately." I reach for her with the confidence of a man who knows he's chosen well and been chosen in return, drawing her into my arms amid our domestic paradise of bureaucratic romance. "What did you have in mind?" "Well." Her fingers trace patterns on my chest, each touch carrying subtle magical resonance that makes my pulse quicken. "We could review our emergency protocols one more time." Very responsible. Or we could draft amendments to the community support guidelines. Also practical. Unfortunately. Or, she rises on her toes to brush her lips against mine, the kiss carrying harmonics that fill the room with shimmering warmth. We could celebrate the fact that we survived magical chaos and bureaucratic disaster to build something extraordinary together. I kiss her properly then, one hand cradling her face while the other pulls her closer, savoring how naturally we fit together. The magical bond between us resonates with joy and desire, creating visible ripples of golden light that dance through our workspace and make the very air sing with contentment. "The third option," I murmur against her mouth. "Definitely the third option."
Thank you for listening. Please visit me at wynnvalentine.com to stay up to date. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and review.